It's It's April 16th. I'm Ezra Levant, and you're watching the Rebels live stream Super Chat on Alberta election night. Welcome to all of our fans across Canada and around the world. We are doing a Super Chat. That's something invented by YouTube. It's a live streaming program, but as you can see, to the right-hand side of your video screen, you can tell us what you're thinking. Comments that I see in real time just as you make them. We have 735 people watching the live stream already, and we've only been going for 1 minute. The Super Chat part is if you want to make a comment stand out in bright highlight, you can chip in a few bucks and it makes it bright and it appends it to the top of the screen. Even more fun is that we get a share of that dough from Google. Normally we're demonetized because we're conservative. I'm going to take my tie off. What am I doing with a tie? I'm far too fancy pants. We're talking about getting rid of the Alberta NDP. That's hard work. That's not fancy work. That's tough work. That's riding by riding work. Anyways, back to the Super Chat. You can make your comments bold in highlighted colors, and they're appended to the top of the screen, and I can see them out of the corner of my eye, and we will do our best to read them. But look, I'm just out here in exile in Ontario at Rebel World Headquarters. Joining me now live from Alberta, from Calgary, from Jason Kenney's United Conservative Party election night event are our Alberta Bureau Chief Sheila Gunn Reid and our Calgary reporter and resident commie hunter Keean Bexte. Sheila and Keean, great to see you.
Hey Ezra, this is so exciting. Our Liberation Day is upon us. It's starting to turn into a party in here. People are just starting to file in. Polls don't close for about another 15 or so minutes. And I think after that, after we start seeing some results and some of the volunteers start filing in, it is going to be a real hootenanny in here.
Well, that sounds great. Keean, you know what? Actually, I saw you wearing a tie and I put one off and then I immediately ripped it off. But you're the fancy one here. You did some outstanding work. I think, Sheila's amazing, but I think your video where you tracked down the communist candidate, Anne McGrath, I think that was the most watched video of the entire election of any TV station covering the news. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is right. All of Global's coverage, all of CTV, CBC, City News, if you check their YouTube pages, there is no video that breached 100,000 views. And our video did, where we chased down the local communist in Calgary to ask her if she regrets being a communist. Of course, she doesn't regret being a communist. She sort of apologized at a community forum for her awful history, but you were telling me just a week ago, communists don't change their stripes. They're like cheetahs like that. It's my fingers are crossed. It's going to be a tight race in Calgary varsity. My guess is the UCP is going to edge them out. That's what 338 is predicting, but I got to knock on wood because it's really close.
Keean, I'm sorry, I'm getting a message in my ear. I apologize for interrupting you, Keean. It is 7:48 Mountain Time, 7:48 p.m. in Alberta, and polls close at 8 p.m., but I'm getting in my ear, I believe our decision desk has called it. The United Conservatives, we call the election, win a majority government. Our decision desk, aka Justin, has just told me that we are in a position to call the Conservative majority, and the first media in the province to declare Jason Kenney the new Premier of Alberta. Sheila Gunn Reid. It's been a long 4 years, but our decision desk calls it. I think they're right.
I think they're right too. Congratulations to all of us that we are being liberated from this oppressive NDP government. Just going back to Keean's story on Anne McGrath, when I need a pick-me-up, I go back and watch that video. I think I'm responsible for about 1,000 views on Keean's Anne McGrath video. I even took the audio off, and when, instead of getting myself a coffee in the middle of the afternoon, I listened to Keean yell, Anne, are the police coming? I'd like to report a communist. And I'm so excited to hear that the UCP seems to be edging out Anne McGrath in that riding. We'll know for sure later on in the day, and I'll be glad to find out if they have. But I'd like to think that Keean's responsible for a little bit of that, because the CBC down the block from us here in the media desk, they sure as heck didn't report that Anne McGrath was a communist. They like to whitewash her history, washing the red out of her history, and Keean was really the first to tell the truth about her.
Go ahead, Keean.
You could see if you looked at the 338 polls before I covered Anne McGrath at all, the seat was leaning NDP according to 338 Canada. Now it is a toss-up, leaning just ever so slightly blue. It's within like 0.5% margin of error between the two, and it's got me a little bit concerned because I feel that we're going to get some wrong riding calls tonight. We're going to look at the results that we see on Elections Alberta, and it's going to look like someone might win, but we won't know until the next day whether or not for sure certain ridings have won, especially the very close ones, because so many Albertans turned out for advanced polls this year. Almost 700,000 Albertans voted in advanced polls, which is terrible news for Rachel Notley. As you know, high advanced poll turnout is almost always bad news for the sitting government. So I guess that's good news for us.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's going to be an exciting night, and I do want to tell our people that we will read the super chats. As you can see, there are some brightly colored comments there. For example, Primpal08 contributed $5, and I just want to say thanks, because unlike the CBC state broadcaster, we get no money from Justin Trudeau. We refuse to take government money. Unlike CTV or Global, we're not run by big corporations. Global News, of course, their newsroom is dominated, colonized by Unifor, the anti-conservative union campaigners. We're really the only independent media out there. So when, for example, Primpal08 chips in $5 and says, winning back Canada one province at a time, today it's Alberta's turn, then on to federal election in October. I appreciate your comment, but I also appreciate the financial support it means. Let me just read one more. Proud Boys Calgary chips in $5. Hello to Sheila, the NDP destroyer, and Keean, the commie hunter. Alberta strong and free. Proud of your Albertans. All right, let me just read one more. And this is from Craig McDonald, who chips in $21. Here you go, Ezra. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you very much. And Quake Opaque says, Ezra, I appreciate your view and opinion compared to the mainstream media. A thumbs up to Sheila and Keean. Great job to all. Okay, I think I caught up on the super chats there. It's 9:52. We do have a few more minutes before the polls close, although, as I say, our decision desk has already deflated the balloon of expectations. We know what's going to happen. But Sheila, it looks like you and Keean have the pride of place there on the riser. I can see the main stage behind you, but I can only see the view of our static camera. Can you look around and tell me what you see? And I would like you to tell me just how sad the faces are on the government journalists of the state broadcaster.
Okay, so, in fact, we aren't on the riser. We're actually on the floor. All the satellite live feeds are sort of behind us for the mainstream media, and we're sitting here with a lot of the print journalists and a lot of the online journalists. They're straight down the row beside us. We sort of picked a spot right at the end, and boy, man alive, what a dour looking bunch. They are sour. And I think that's for two reasons. I mean, first of all, they have to be here to watch Jason Kenney win after campaigning for Rachel Notley, and I suppose for a job with Rachel Notley for about the last 4 years. But they sure don't like the fact that Keean and I are sitting here at the end. We're sort of poking fun at them and their sour looks. They look like they've come to their own funeral. There's not a smile amongst them. Pretty cliquey bunch. They don't want to talk to us, but yeah, they're pretty depressed. Today's going to be a very tough day for them.
Yeah, Keean, you know what? I mean, I've seen you go right into the lion's den, Keean. I've seen you go right up to Rachel Notley, right up to Darren Billis, and ask them difficult questions in a very polite but firm manner. I've seen you go to a Notley rally in Edmonton, and I've seen you be swarmed by some NDP hobos. So you maintain the air of a happy warrior, even when you're with people who are not like you. it seems to me that the media party, they can't even fake it. They despise severely normal Albertans. I'm not saying every single journalist. I can count on one hand's fingers the number of media party journalists who I respect, who do good. Rick Bell, man of the people, salt of the earth, great journalist. Leisha Corbella, great journalist. And I'm almost done. My point is, Lauren Gunter, obviously a great guy and a pillar of our show, of course, my own show, the Ezra Levant Show. But Keean, the same happy warrior attitude you bring, these pouty CBC government journalists, I think it's because they hold up in their little enclave there at CBC headquarters. They're speaking French. They're only eating imported, rations from Toronto. They really don't get out amongst the people. The closest they ever get to the oil patch is maybe when they, pump their own gas when the full service is closed. So these are people who I think despise Albertans. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. And I didn't have much journalistic experience before joining the Rebel, and once reporting on stories in Calgary and when I started reporting on stories in Edmonton, I realized how much of a cult the mainstream media really is.
Good word.
They show up at these press conferences, they exchange talking points, they sort of divvy them out so they don't all seem like they're sharing the same lines. The whole copy your homework but change a few lines so that the teacher doesn't know. They're all good buddies. They all go to beer nights together, except for me, of course. I'm usually the black sheep of these media scrums in Calgary. But really, they have no shame about it. That's why they're called the media party. That's why you call them the media party, because at the end of the day, they're one and the same. They all have one message, and it's the message of the closest left-wing government.
I'm going to read some more super chats just because I want to show our gratitude to our grassroots supporters. Let me speak to our decision desk. Justin, while I do that, can you please get the clip of Keean Bexte going right up to Darren Billis and Rachel Notley and asking a question, a genuine journalistic question. So while you're getting that clip, I want to say a few quick thank yous. I'm going to whip through some of these super chats because it's so much fun, and thank you, by the way. SMU Johnson, BC stands with Alberta. Thank you very much. And remember that, of course, the political elite in BC is against the pipelines, but every single poll I've ever seen shows that a plurality of British Columbians support the pipelines. Quake Opaque, $25. Ezra, I appreciate your view and opinion compared to the MSM. Thumbs up to Sheila. Oh, I think I read that one already. Craig McDonald, I read that one too. Ben Tomlinson, another one bites the dust. Thanks, Ben. VM Parliament. Ezra, you are a daily inspiration. Thanks for all you and your team do. Well, you're so friendly to put it that way, and it is absolutely a team effort. And Sheila and Keean, they're out there often on their own in the field, but we have a team back here, editors, and they do amazing work. Let me whip through a few more of these. Im Delaney, $2. Keep up the good work, Rebel News. Andy Rondeau, love all the cowardly fake progressive accounts commenting here. Back to the dustbin of history, you losers. Well, you're so right on that. How are we doing for the clip? We got it. Keean was saying he doesn't have a lot of formal training in reportology. You tell me, does this look like a guy who needs to go to schooling for fooling? Take a look at this.
Premier Rachel Notley, documents filed by Minister Billis's wife, sworn affidavits, suggest that he has a problem with drug addiction, as well as the details in that sworn affidavit suggest that he might be one of the MLAs who the NDP caucus covered up in terms of sexual allegations. Can you confirm or deny this?
What I can say is that that question is essentially irresponsible rumor mongering, and with the greatest respect to you, you work for an organization that probably ought to be registered as a third party under the elections legislation, and so I have nothing more to say to that.
Minister Billis, will you answer the question?
I have nothing further to add.
Other questions?
Let me say this, Keean, and I'm not sure if I said this to you privately. If not, I certainly meant to. But let me say it to you and the 2,580 people watching our live stream right now. It takes nerves of steel to be literally 3 feet away from the premier of the province and a high-ranking cabinet minister, and in a calm, cool, but pointed manner, say, is it true? what was in a sworn court affidavit by his wife that he's a drug abuser, and then to move on and put it to Darren Billes. That's a stressful thing to do. You didn't flinch, and the only ones looking more daggers at you, Keean, than Billes and Notley themselves were the rest of the media party, because you were ruining their party. You were breaking the rules. You know, they have a clubby code, and you were breaking the club rules, Keean.
Were. They looked around in stunned silence right after that question happened. The press conference wrapped up very shortly after that, with Rachel Notley kind of shepherding everyone out, all of her ministers out. I want to go back to what she said. She said it was rumor mongering, and sworn affidavits are the opposite of rumors. There are serious allegations again from the wife of Darren Billes, from the wife of one of Notley's lieutenants, that he has a serious drug and alcohol addiction. And he is doling out big bucks. He's not just, he's not the status of women minister. He is the minister for advanced innovation and trade, and he's writing millions of dollars in checks daily. And having someone in that position with his alleged lifestyle, I don't think is in the interests of Albertans.
Yeah. Well, Sheila, you're no stranger to that. In fact, I think you were the first person in memory, in history, to have the Premier of Alberta dispatch an armed sheriff. So, I think Keean snuck in and sort of caught him by surprise, because I don't think they knew him yet. I don't think they, at that point, had recognized him, because the commie hunting truck hadn't yet been deployed. But, JT, can you get the sheriff clip when you're ready? We'll play that. You know what? Why don't you describe the first time you came face to face with Rachel Notley in the legislature, and instead of answering your question, Sheila, and we'll play the video of it, they sent an armed sheriff to shut you up.
Yeah, I never even got past the security desk. And those guys are pretty nice to me down at the legislature, the security guards. I don't have anything against them. They're always really kind to me. One of them actually even goes to my gun range. I went in. She was having a press conference that evening with Justin Trudeau, which, of course, is of the public interest. It's of interest to our viewers and to Albertans in general. And I went in and I said, yeah, I'm just checking in to head over to the press conference in the media room. And they stopped me right at the desk. And then I watched one of Rachel Notley's communications managers direct the head of legislature security to demand that I not only leave the legislature building, but get off the property. Rachel Notley and her communications people, they really embarrassed themselves internationally. They thought that, just because people don't like the rebel, or because progressives don't like the rebel, I won't concede that people don't like us, but that progressives don't like us, that people would just throw aside their belief in the free press to go along with her, and boy, was she ever wrong.
Hey, I have another message coming in from our decision desk, and it is a confirmation. And I'm delighted to confirm our decision desk even more decisively has decided that Albertans have decided to decisively decide that Jason Kenney and the United Conservative Party has won a majority. Of course, you knew this 13 minutes ago, because we were the first news network in Canada to accurately declare Jason Kenney the Premier. That's amazing. I'd like to say thank you to the 2,794 people who are watching us on a live stream. And I want to get to some of your live chats again, because that's half the fun. Am I right?
Yeah.
That's half the fun. So I see here a message from Marlene Smith, who was kind enough to chip in $25. Thank you. I'm in BC and can't wait for the change to come here. Good luck, Alberta. Wishing you the best. Well, I got a warning for you. There's going to be all these unemployed NDP staffers who are going to be looking for work, and I'm afraid they're coming your way. Let me just read one or two more. Kelly Day, our friend Kelly Day from Saskatchewan, who came all the way to Manchester, UK, to play a song for Tommy Robinson, says, a few bucks for the coffer, with much love to all three of you from Steve and I, friends with Rebel and proud purveyors of Rebel Stink. Well, thank you, Kelly. And let me read just one more from Brian Wan, who says, you have my respect for standing up to the NDP and Rachel Notley's legal bullying, and have the guts to ask pointed questions. Okay, one more from Martin Thorne, who says, Ezra, you and all your team define true journalism. Kudos to you from a New Yorker. Well, isn't that friendly? Thank you for that. Okay, one last. Here's a question for Sheila and Keean. That's a good way to make me shut up, is to make a super chat with a question to my colleagues. Here's the question, you guys. In your travels throughout Alberta, this is from John Anderson, what was your sense of Albertans by region? Angry, hopeful, worried, optimistic, more in some places, less in others? Sheila, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I think it's a combination of all of the above. I was out in Lloydminster again on the Alberta side. They're really hit hard by the downturn in oil and gas, but they're lucky there because they can cross the border and at least work in the oil patch in Saskatchewan, where a lot of the people in northeastern Alberta are working right now. They're finding work in Saskatchewan. They're really hopeful, really optimistic for the future. When I was in Bonnyville, again, that's heavy oil country. It's sad. People are broken. They're losing everything, and they are really hopeful for today. When I was in Drayton Valley, Drayton Valley is just a ghost town. It is an absolute ghost town. What Rachel Notley has done to that once prosperous Western Alberta community, it's heartbreaking. And I had teachers and firefighters when I was there coming out to pick up my Stop Notley signs because they are defying their union and voting United Conservative Party because they care more about their town than what the union leadership had to say. When I was in Nisku, people were just really happy that someone in the Edmonton region hasn't conceded the place to progressives, because even I joke all the time that Edmonton is just a progressive hellscape, stay away from it. But they were, I was happy and everybody else was happy that, there are these enclaves of conservatism in the outlying areas, and we shouldn't be walking away from them and just walking off the battlefield and just leaving it to the NDP. So that was really, it's an emotional journey around the province to deliver these signs. You're seeing these towns as they are and meeting these people as they are. And I don't know about Keean. Well, I do know about Keean for sure. When we go to these places, we really do take the time to listen to people's stories because I think they're just as equally happy to have our support as we are to have theirs.
Ezra, we just have the first polls coming in from this election. The polls closed at 8 o'clock, of course, and each poll is now counting up their votes and submitting them to Elections Alberta, as much as we trust them. But the first poll to report is in Drayton Valley, Devon. The NDP have come in with 35 votes, and the United Conservative Party has come in with 178. Of course, that's just the first poll out of 107, but I think that might be indicative of what we're going to see for the rest of the night.
And that's Mark Smith's riding. So Mark Smith was excoriated by Press Progress and the NDP for things that he said once half a decade ago in his church. So his private religious beliefs that have never crept their way into his public policy. For all of the NDP attacks on Mark Smith in Drayton Valley, it seems to me that the people there don't care about those things as much as they care about jobs coming back to the region.
Work that Press Progress does. It must be a little bit, it must hurt their morale to think that they have tried so hard over the course of this election to sway Albertans even a little bit, but they have failed tremendously. It's glorious.
That's just amazing. I'm going to I have those stats on my screen here. I'm checking the Elections Alberta results, and just those numbers again. I want to say the Liberal Party has 1 vote. I'm just going to say that again. The Liberal Party has 1 vote.
That seems high.
Who's that? I demand to know who that is. And the governing party, the NDP, 35, and then the UCP, as you mentioned, the candidate targeted by the CBC, GST, GSA, NDP, whatever. He's got 178 votes. I'm going to do a little mathematics here. I should be able to do that in my head, but I'm going to use my calculator.
80% the UCP.
What percentage is that?
80%. 79.5 to be exact.
80
Seems low.
bloody percent. 80%. I'm just going to say it one more time. 80% for the UCP. Well, that's incredible. Okay, let's take a peek at some more super chats. Jim Trowick says, "Don't underestimate the foolish voters in Dedmonton." Well, listen, there are certainly lots of government sector workers there, and it has a leftist culture, especially around the university. But as Margaret Thatcher said, socialism only works until you run out of other people's money, and I think that's where Alberta is these days. I want to whip through a few more of these super chats. Whiskey Jack very generously chipped in $50. Thank you, Ezra, Sheila, and Keean. You Rebel Media, you Rebel Keep It Honest and Real here in Alberta and Canada. And Spectral Cloak, go UCP. Thank you for that. Kia Kinneberg, $10. Make Alberta great again. Thank you, Ezra, Sheila, Keean, and Rebel Media. That's nice of you to say. Nani Perry, absolutely top-notch team. Thanks so much. Ali C, Orange Flush. That's a funny one. C Wolf, 50 smackers from Wolf Transport. Let's get the trucks working in Alberta. Love the billboard on Highway 2. Wow, what do you think of that? The billboard on Highway 2. Well, you know, we've had a few billboards there. And Sheila, you've been involved in some of those, and same with you, Keean. Well, what do you make of that?
I think that's fantastic. You know, I love those billboards on the side of Highway 2. Good way to get message across. People love them. People send me pictures they're taking of the billboard as they go by. So I know, like, I think that's been the one thing about this election campaign, and Keean, I'll ask you the same question. But I think for me, it's been that for the first time in maybe forever, someone is taking the fight to the progressives, whether it's a billboard on the side of Highway 2 or a book or a sign campaign or Keean's beautiful Anne McGrath truck. The NDP and the progressives, they're really caught flat-footed because no one's ever stood up to them before.
No, you're right about that. The left wing in Canada and even in the United States is very good at mobilizing and distributing grassroots messaging. And I think that is only being recreated here in Canada from a conservative perspective by the Rebel. I mean, the fact that we have almost, I'm not sure who's leading who right now. I keep tabs on our YouTube subscribers between us and the CBC. I think we're edging them out just a little bit, but our viewers put forward their own money to fund these billboards, and I'm so grateful to them for that, because it's not big corporate messaging, it's not big union messaging. It's a mom from Drayton Valley, it's a dad from Vulcan, Alberta, who pitched in a few bucks to make their voices heard. It started with the Fire Egan billboard back in November, I think it was, back in November. We started doing this, and we've been putting out a billboard every month, and it's actually insanely effective. It's 1.3 million viewers per month, because the billboards go out for about a month, and it's 1.3 million people looking at it. I think it's a great use.
And I'm going to interrupt you. I have news from JT, our decision desk, and the news is Jason Kenney is still the Premier of Alberta. Actually, I'm just joking around. I have some new news. It's from Brooks Medicine Hat, and there are 37 votes counted, so just one ballot, sounds like, one ballot box, and it's one vote for an independent, good for him, 12 votes for the NDP, and 24 votes for the United Conservative Party. You know, early days, but you know, I think that there's the rural or small town Alberta, you're going to see votes in the 70 to 90% range. Sheila, I mean, you're from a small town outside of Edmonton, and Keean, you're actually originally from a farm outside Calgary. You guys know rural Alberta better than me. I want to ask you to make a guess. What is the highest percentage that you think the UCP will get in any riding? And I think it's probably going to be rural. I mean, there'll be some good ones in Calgary. I'm willing to say there will be a vote that touches 90%. I think it's going to be Innisfail. I think it's going to be the Make America Great Again candidate, Devin Dreeshen. I'm in for 90. You guys want to top me on that?
I say 86, and it will be Devin Dreeshen in Innisfail, Sylvan Lake.
I'm going to break from the crowd here. I don't think it's going to be quite that high. I think it'll be mid 80 range, so around 85. But I think that it is going to be my home riding of Cardston Siksika. It's a really weird riding. If you can pull up a picture of it, you should show it to our viewers. It is one of the most gerrymandered ridings in Alberta. It looks like an hourglass. It goes all the way from the number 1 highway up on the corner of Strathmore, all the way down to the Montana border. It loops around Lethbridge, and the NDP gerrymandered it so that there would be 2 Indigenous reserves in that riding. Whether they turn out to vote is a different question, because they tend to have very low voter turnout rates. But I think that we're going to see about 85%, maybe a little bit higher there with the UCP candidate Joseph Scow. He's a good candidate by every metric. He hasn't had any scandals, and it's a very, very conservative riding. So my guess is there.
Isn't that interesting? I see some numbers coming in also from Drumheller Stettler. It doesn't make sense to me. I only see an NDP and Alberta Party number, no UCP. But the numbers are really coming in from Brooks now. 5 of the local ballot boxes or polling stations would be more accurate, and it's just crushing. It's just overwhelming. 476 votes for the UCP, 84 for the NDP, and can you believe it? An independent candidate is actually running ahead of the NDP. That's got to be embarrassing.
You know what, Ezra, that candidate there, his name's Todd Beasley in Brooks Medicine Hat. He was one of the nomination candidates in the United Conservative Party. He was kicked out for making statements that the party brass deemed to be not up to par. He's had very, very good momentum in the Brooks area. There's lawn signs are everywhere. I was touring there when I was handing out our Stop Notley signs. There was more independent Todd Beasley signs than there were Michaela Glasgow from the United Conservative Party. But that's just in Brooks. Medicine Hat is a much larger part of that riding. But it is really astounding to see how well that independent candidate is doing, despite the party's best efforts to keep him out of the legislature.
And again, Michaela Glasgow, she was another young female conservative who was targeted by the likes of Press Progress for her religious views and her comments on the carbon tax. And look how well that turned out for Press Progress.
Yeah, I mean, I joked, I called Devin Dreeshen the MAGA, Make America Great Again candidate, because scandal of scandals, he was photographed wearing that fun hat. Anyone who thinks that's not going to be well received in Innisfail has never been there. Now, I want to catch up on some of the super chats. By the way, Sheila and Keean, can you see the super chats where you are?
Yes.
All right, well, I've been reading them out, and it's a lot of fun. Why don't you guys take some turns and go through some of the super chats, because, you know, first of all, it's to say thanks to people who are chipping in. For those of you who are watching now, we got 3,310 people online right now, which is pretty great. How super chats work is, as you can see, it makes your comment brightly colored, easy for us to see, and it appends it to the top of the box there for a while. But what's really great, and I thank you for this personally, and I know Sheila and Keean will too, is that YouTube shares 70% of those revenues with us. And because unlike the CBC state broadcaster, we take no government funds. Unlike CTV and Global, we're not owned by some corporation. We're not run by Unifor, the union, in our newsrooms, unlike Global. So we really do need the dough. So thanks for that. Sheila and Keean, why don't you go through some of those super chats now?
You got it. I don't know. I can't get back any further than I am. So, Mr. Producer, I'm sure can text message me or email me and let me know if I actually missed one. But we've got one here from Primpal08, who's always very generous on all of our super chats. And he says, been checking in on the CBC from time to time. I think it'll be as much fun watching them tonight as it was watching CNN during the 2016 U.S. election. We were joking about that off camera. I can't wait till the sobbing starts at the media.
Tears. I really am.
I know. The media table's right beside us. I've got Kleenex in my purse to dish out for them. Don't worry.
I wanted to go to the NDP headquarters so that I could be the one to film that footage. You might remember the footage from the Hillary Clinton camp when she conceded.
The sobbing and the wailing.
Crying. I really wanted to be the one to get that footage, but I think this is going to be a much better party here tonight.
So Slavey McSlaverson, I bet that's not even your real name, gives us $10, again, very generous, and says, can can you make Kelly Day sing for us again? You know what? How about this? Kelly, I know you're watching. I'm inviting you onto the Gunn show, and you can sing for us on there. So you can email me and we confirm that up. How's that, Slavey? Did you get your $10 worth? Let's keep going. Oh, okay, we've got another one from Maxwell Myling, gives us $5. Rebel has double the viewers of the CBC live stream. We are winning the culture war. Keean, does that surprise you at all?
It doesn't surprise
They're
me.
dry and boring. We walked past them, it's like a graveyard over there. Yeah, no wonder people aren't watching.
Let me interrupt you for a second. I'm hearing some news
There's
from our
booing.
election desk, and yes, I can confirm that Jason Kenney is still the Premier of Alberta. How do you like them apples, Rach? Okay, thanks. Sorry, Sheila, back to you.
Okay, some booing broke out here.
Justin Trudeau just showed
it's
up
because Justin Trudeau showed up on the big screen behind us, and everybody started booing, and it was just amazing. Okay, so we've got Ken George. Holy cow, Ken George. This will pay for Keean and I's pizza supper that we had before we went on the air. $69.99. Sheila, do you think Notley was being influenced by UN globalists? And how do we spread freedom and independent thought to counteract organizations like Press Progress locally? Would you consider coaching other conservative-minded groups? Holy, that's a big question. Do I think Notley was being influenced by the United Nations? Of course. Her carbon tax was born out of the Paris Accord. So she marches lockstep with the people in the United Nations who look to control your life and use things like carbon taxes to do it. How do we counteract that? I suppose we do it. We're way bigger than Press Progress. Press Progress does have the ear of the mainstream media, but we have the ear of the people, and that's really all that matters. As far as considering coaching other conservative-minded groups, the other conservative-minded groups, I like them, but I don't know how open they are to working with me. They're very risk-averse. Plus, I do my own thing here at The Rebel, and I think it works out pretty good for Keean and I. Okay, next one. Ali Lynn Daly gives us $20.99. Ali, that's very generous. Thank you for sharing the truth. Our family is so grateful for all that you and your team continue to do. You're amazing. Well, thank you, Ali. That's very kind. It's a big job, but we're happy to be the ones you trust to do it. I think we're almost at the end, Ezra. I know you're trying to cut me off.
You know what? I actually have some real news. I was sort of joking around about breaking in to tell you that Jason Kenney.
Okay, fine.
Breaking news. But I see that Edmonton Highlands Norwood has reported, or at least a little bit, 147 votes have reported. And so that's interesting because, of course, Edmonton is also called Redmonton. It's the hot spot for the NDP. And incredibly, the UCP is ahead, not by much, 64 votes to 60 votes. I don't know if that will hold, but it's an interesting first piece of news. Back to you, Keean. Do you want to take a few super chats?
Can you see that?
I can't see it on my screen. Okay, so I'm going to read it off of Sheila's screen here.
Bill Marks.
Bill Marks says, "Thank you for all you do, Rebel Media. Let's destroy globalism. Wake up." I'm not wearing my glasses.
Wake up the sheeple people.
Wake up the. Yeah, I get the easy super chats. That's good. No, I agree.
All right, now we're starting to see trickles of numbers come in from the Elections Alberta website, and I hope they're more competent at counting as they are. I mean, what a bizarre month we've had. Election Alberta making some strange statements. Look at them fancy graphics. What do you think of them apples, folks? Look at them fancy graphics. But of course, we were the first to call Jason Kenney with the majority government. I can see that the numbers are starting to come in, and I think there is absolutely no doubt that it will be a majority. The only question is how high. All right, sorry, Keean, go ahead. Back to you. I sort of jumped in there, but please continue.
Well, that super chat was rather brief. Can we scroll down and grab some more?
Sure, we can.
In the meantime, we're seeing Calgary Northwest report as well. Blowout there as well for the United Conservative Party. They're sitting at 56 votes to the NDP's 28. So that's pretty good. That's Sandra Jansen's old riding, where she crossed the floor. They had always elected PCs in the past, but Sandra Jansen took it upon herself to cross the floor to the socialist government side. I think that they're going to rebuke the NDP pretty much unanimously. Can we read more of those super chats?
Sure.
There?
Can you see?
Edmund Burke is indefinitely better than Karl Marx. This is an easy job. I agree.
No argument from the commie hunter.
Well, speaking of which, I mean, I love the super chats, and I want to say thanks. Everyone's so generous. But I want to show producer / decision desk, Justin, can you load up the commie hunting truck? Because it's when that Soviet anthem comes on. It's a very powerful moment. Can we play the first 90 seconds or so of that? So this is Keean when he heard that there was a real bona fide, unrepentant, remorseless communist running in Calgary Varsity. Well, he knew he had to do something. So he got himself a commie hunting truck, and without further ado, take a look at this video. We'll only play the first 2 minutes or so. I recommend you watch the whole thing. Here's Keean Bexte hunting commies in Calgary.
So I'm in the billboard truck. I'm very excited still. And we just left the University of Calgary. Campus security came and kicked us off. Not much of a surprise. I guess they told us that we needed to book the space. I didn't know that you needed to book roads. But whatever, it was kind of expected. We're on our way to Rachel Notley's campaign stop now. It's just outside of Calgary Varsity, but it's being co-hosted with the communist Anne McGrath. So we're going to go park outside of the event and see if we can catch some Notley or some Notley supporters looking at the board. So I'm standing right outside of the bread line at Rachel Notley's campaign stop here with Anne McGrath. You can see behind me, the billboard is right there. The refresh rate on my camera is probably not going to pick it up. But I'm going to go into this bread line here and ask if they even knew that Anne McGrath was a communist in the first place.
A gorgeous piece of filmmaking and journalism. To me, when that young man was running along the playground, he didn't understand what was going on. He knew something terrifying and wonderful at the same time was happening. A terrible fact was being revealed to the world in a wonderful way. And Keean, I just want to say that billboard truck with the blaring loudspeakers of the Soviet anthem sung by the Red Army Choir was one of the most terrifying pieces of filmmaking we have done out of the 11,000 videos we have made here at The Rebel.
It got a little, I was in the truck and you can hear the loudspeakers very clearly from the front seat, and we had the truck for a couple hours, and listening to the Red Anthem for that long is enough to drive a conservative insane.
I think we should win an Oscar for that. The cinematography was gorgeous, just so well put together. Little Efron, I hope you're watching. I know you put that together. It was great. Our videographer, he did great work.
All right, we're joking around, we're having some fun, but that's part of what we do here at The Rebel. We have a touch of irreverence. Are there any ridings that are popping up? I see that Cypress Medicine Hat looks a little closer than I would have thought. Cypress Medicine Hat, 206 votes for the United Conservatives, 172 for the NDP. I guess they really got their vote out, didn't they?
Well, there are some bad polls, right? You know, this could be a city center in Medicine Hat. It could be a lot of things causing this. Cypress Medicine Hat is a very conservative riding. If Drew Barnes doesn't win with a majority of the votes, I would be very, very surprised. We are seeing that Edmonton Glenora, that is Sarah Hoffman's riding, the one that called us all sewer rats. She looks like she's going to be running away with that one, pretty much confirmed, which is sad. But it's interesting because she's probably what I would predict would be one of the candidates to replace Rachel Notley when she inevitably resigns. Maybe she won't resign though. I don't know. What do you think, Ezra? Do you think Rachel Notley's going to stay on as leader or resign in apprentice-style huff at midnight?
Well, it's a very good question. I mean, I don't think she's going to resign tonight. I think that was just too disgraceful for Jim Prentice, the late Jim Prentice, to do. But I can't imagine she would stick around in opposition. I think maybe she's going to go to British Columbia and manage the re-election campaign for John Horgan. It's a role she's played before, working for the NDP in British Columbia against Alberta's interests. She actually lived out there fighting against Alberta for BC's NDP. It wouldn't shock me if Rachel Notley moves on to greener pastures. That said, maybe she's going to get some cushy union job and basically rent out her connections. I don't know what she's going to do, but I know that she'll no longer be able to hurt 4.5 million Albertans.
Well, don't say that too fast, because Edmonton Strathcona, the federal seat, Linda Duncan, the NDP candidate who has won in Edmonton quite a few times, she's just resigning. So don't say that too fast, because she might jump into federal politics, and that's probably my worst nightmare.
That's a very good point.
It's not my worst nightmare. As a Conservative, I think that's a fabulous idea, because the federal Conservatives need a vote split on the left, and when they need a strong, quote-unquote, well-respected everywhere but Alberta NDP leader, I'd love to see Rachel Notley head to federal politics and replace the hapless Jagmeet Singh, so we can capitalize on the vote split on the left, and Conservatives can just sort of come up the middle.
Because if Jagmeet loses the election horrendously, like is obviously going to happen, almost obviously going to happen, there's going to be a leadership review, and that means that Rachel Notley could take the seat if she ran in the federal election. That would be interesting. It's getting a little bit loud here. I think it's starting to fill up. The crowd's starting to fill up here. Everybody's
starting to watch the election results roll in behind us.
Well, it is getting very exciting. I'm a little bit nervous at some of the polls, some of the ridings, but of course it's just the first few ballot boxes. But I think that the NDP give them this, because they have so many government unions working for them. They have a strong get out the vote campaign. They don't have to rely on volunteers. The union says to everyone in the union, we're all taking the day off and we're going to door knock. Because our government sector contracts depend on it. I want to whip through some more super chats, because there's some very generous super chats coming in. I'm just going to whip through a few of them. Blaine Sandberg chips in 50 smackers. So pleased with the great work the Rebel does in letting us get the unadulterated truth. Thank you, Blaine. Phantom 196908 chips in $20. I don't see a comment though, but thank you. Mallowell $20. Also no comment. James Jameson, $50. Thank you so much for that. Wes Ford, $20. Free at last. Lord of Money, we are free at last. Shirley Rose Lee with $25. Thank you. Oh my God, $100 from Vince Byfield. Vince, that is so nice of you. Great to see you. Of course, Vince, one of the great Byfields of that family that has been fighting for Alberta for generations. And I had the honor of working for the Alberta Report for a year, or not a year, for a summer in 1994 when I was a young pup, just about your age, Keean. Let me throw it to you, Keean, and if you and Sheila want to give us an update on any ridings, or if you want to read some super chats.
Well, we are seeing Innisfail Sylvan Lake report. It is just preliminary as well, but we're seeing that Devon Dreeshen has more than 80% right now. So
come on, 86.
But Cardston 6 hasn't reported yet. I'm keenly watching, because I'm expecting a blowout there. I'm just trying to calculate which. It's getting very loud here. Can you hear us still?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Because Keean and I cannot hear each other. I'm also watching very closely Central Peace Dunvegan. That's Marga McQuaig Boyd. Her riding, our energy minister. She pops up once every quarter to let me know that she's still alive and she's on the right side of the dirt. But other than that, she has done very little except hand over her ministry to the likes of Lead Now. She's up against Todd Lowen, who is a sitting United Conservative Party MLA because of the redistributed ridings. They're running against each other now, so 2 sitting MLAs running against each other. So I am waiting with bated breath to find out that Marg McQuaig-Boyd can go back to doing whatever the heck she was doing before she was driving our energy industry into the ground. And I'm watching very carefully to find out if I have a new MLA, not if, when I have a new MLA in Fort Saskatchewan, Vegreville, and that is not reporting yet, much to my chagrin.
You know, Keean, I want to go to you. You're looking very intently at the results, but there's a result I want to report. It's from Lethbridge West. That is where Shannon Phillips, the defamer of grassroots Albertans, the serial liar, the pathological politician who claimed that there were death threats that police were looking into. She lied about the police. What a disgraceful woman. She's the reason Sheila deployed the Fire Phillips billboard. I'm pleased to say that she's in the fight of her life. Right now there's 617 votes cast in Lethbridge West, and she is very slightly ahead. She's ahead by 8 votes. She has 266 votes, and the UCP candidate has 258. Now again, early days, but 5 polls reporting out of 98, so things could change, but it's interesting to see. Are you surprised by that, Sheila?
Yeah, I'm surprised actually that it is that close because, correct me if I'm wrong, Keean, but her riding is a university area riding. So, Rachel Notley conveniently called the election so that the kids were still at university so that they could vote in the ridings in which they were going to university as opposed to the ridings in which they live for the rest of the year. So that would benefit, of course, Edmonton, Rachel Notley's riding, although she doesn't need the help. But more importantly, I believe it was designed to help Shannon Phillips in Lethbridge, and it looks like it's not helping her as much as they thought it would.
Well, there's a lot of excitement. What do you think they're referring to? Is there a particular result that has come through?
It sounds like Jason Kenney is appearing here. We're not sure.
Yeah.
Everyone's
it looks like Jason Kenney's coming in.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm hearing in my ear. I'm sorry. I'm getting a message from our decision desk, and yes, Jason Kenney is still the Premier of Alberta, and Rachel Notley is not. Okay, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to tell you that news. I also see a super chat for 100 smackers from Peaceful SEK, who says, from your conservative friends in BC, please continue to seek the truth and expose leftist propaganda. You inspire strength and honesty. Let your voice be heard. Well, we sure will, and I thank you for that. And freedom of speech is one of our core values, and it's one of the values that has been most taxed by Rachel Notley, but Sheila and Keean fight back every day. Keean, I see you're looking intently at the poll-by-poll results. Is there anything that catches your eye?
Well, actually, what I'm looking at intently is my very bad internet connection. When we showed up, the organizers weren't entirely hospitable to us, and they didn't give us internet. So we're kind of running on some duct tape internet here. But Brooks Medicine Hat, as we were reporting earlier, it looks like Todd Beasley has started to fall behind. He hasn't gotten many more votes since we reported earlier. He's sitting at 134 to Michaela Glasgow's 731. She's absolutely destroying the NDP candidate there, who has just about 200 votes. I'm waiting for Calgary Varsity. Actually, Calgary Varsity has just reported, and Anne McGrath is behind, actually. This is exciting. I am very excited now. Okay, Anne McGrath is behind by about 20 votes, so it's close, but she's behind.
Well, that's just one poll, one ballot box reporting, or one poll district reporting, but I think that the margin, and I'm sorry to have interrupted you, she's trailing by 16 votes. I personally observed you turn several votes around with the commie hunting truck. If she loses by 5% or less, Keean Bexte, I think it is statistically valid to say you made the difference.
I think, and that's what I'm waiting for, really. I'm hoping that she loses by a margin of about 1,000. I think that if she loses by about that much, I can reasonably be certain that the Rebel had a serious influence in that election, which I think is good. And I don't mean any sort of bad influence. I mean, we informed voters. Voters in Calgary Varsity didn't know that Anne McGrath ran for the Communist Party in 1984, the height of the Cold War, when nuclear holocaust was could have happened at any hour of the decade. And when voters became aware of that, they turned off of Anne McGrath and Rachel Notley. They couldn't believe that Rachel Notley would run a communist candidate in that fashion and try and sweep it under the rug. But we informed voters, and I think that really helped democracy, I think.
All right, well, I see some downtown Calgary ridings are reporting. I see Calgary Buffalo is reporting. Now, again, only four polling stations out of 94, but the NDP lead there, that's Joe Ceci. He has 195. The UCP's Tom Olson, 126. It's too early to make much of that, but if that holds up much longer, I think Joe Ceci will be re-elected. Another Calgary riding that's downtown-ish. Let's see, I saw one there a moment ago, Calgary Elbow. That is Doug Schweitzer, a failed leadership candidate. He looks like he will be beating Janet Aremko, 477 votes to 354. Again, 8 polls out of 86. It's starting to be meaningful. I think Schweitzer will win. Sheila or Keean, what do you think of Schweitzer? He's a bit of a red Tory. Frankly, I would much rather have had a win in Edmonton than have this Conservative and name-only win in Calgary.
Well, I don't think very highly of him, that's for sure.
He doesn't like me either.
He called us Nazis. He called us not.
He called us extremists. He sent, when he was running for the leadership of the party, I think he finished with about 7 or 9%. He didn't break double digits, but he basically didn't campaign against Jason Kenney. He campaigned against us, and he sent out a bunch of emails, or at least one solid email, where he excoriated Jason Kenney for once ever having spoken to me years ago. Maybe we exchanged a passing glance one time, or a handshake around Christmas, and that was enough for Jason Kenney to get the stink of Sheila on him. And so then Doug Schweitzer, that was his only way to victory, was to campaign against us. And I predicted he wouldn't break double digits, and he didn't. And so there's one Conservative I wish had lost, but I suppose I can't win them all.
He really is Alison Redford's legacy.
Yes, yes.
He had a lot of Redford staffers working on his campaign, and when he failed, he kind of snuggled up to Jason Kenney as quickly as he could. You saw it. Brian
he knew
Jean
where
didn't
power
do that.
was. Yeah.
He knew where power was, and he knew where power's going. And when Jason Kenney inevitably runs to be Prime Minister of Canada, I bet you Doug Ford is going to be waiting there with his hands out, waiting for his turn for the Reds to overtake Alberta's Conservative Party and start this whole cycle all over again. It really started with Ed Stelmach and Alison Redford, and then turned into Prentice. Then turned into Dave Hancock, which turned into Jim Prentice, which turned into Rachel Notley. So, now Jason Kenney, I guess, as well.
Sorry, I just have one interesting one I just wanted to pop in with, if nobody minds. Chestermere, Strathmore, which is redistributed riding, and that is oh shoot, my mind isn't thinking well. That's Derek Fildebrandt's riding, and Leila Ahir looks like the UCP is running away with it at 815 votes, and Derek Fildebrand has 52 right now. So it looks like people, although Derek is popular and well liked in the riding, it looks like people are voting to get rid of Rachel Notley instead of voting for their sitting MLA.
Conservative Party. Yeah, well, I guess that's to be expected.
Yeah.
It's a little bit unfortunate what happened in that riding, because as it was redistributed, it was turned into one of those rural ridings that reaches into just enough of a city that the rural voters are kind of incapacitated in a way. The city, Chestermere, which is a suburban Calgary, it's a bedroom community, is really going to be running that bit of Alberta, that rural bit of Strathmore, because they're just going to overwhelm Strathmore voters, which is where Derek Fildebrand has seemed to have his base. He was sort of reaching into Chestermere trying to get some support, but that's where Leila Ahir is from. That's where she overtook Bruce McAllister, the former Wild Rose Party turned PC candidate. we see the mainstream media here is just taking pictures of us, so it's a bit distracting. But Derek, yeah, well, it's unfortunate that Derek's losing. I think I would have liked to see him win because it's always good to have a conservative opposition in the legislature. It's great to have a conservative government, but it's even better to have an opposition that's even farther to the right to make sure that Jason Kenney doesn't stray into the red zone.
Yeah.
Well, that's an important point because, Jason Kenney is as conservative as he is, but if you have people like Doug Schweitzer and his caucus pulling him hard to the left, you have the NDP opposition pulling him to the left, you have the CBC state broadcaster pulling him to the left, you have the rest of the media party pulling him to the left. Who's there to pull him to the right? Well, the only answer I see right now is the two people I'm looking at on my screen, Keean Bexte, Sheila Gunn, Reid, and whatever we can do out here from the central command of the rebel army. And I'm not just joking around. I should tell you, when the Sun News Network was born, Stephen Harper was the prime minister. And you might say, well, what's the point of a conservative network when there's a conservative prime minister? Well, that's a very important point, because you need to, number one, keep the Conservative Party honest. Keep it conservative. No one else is going to. Everyone else will applaud them as they ooze to the left. Look at Patrick Brown when he endorsed the carbon tax. Look at Preston Manning when he endorsed the carbon tax. The media party loved it. So it's the job of the rebel to keep the United Conservative Party united. No, it's not our job to keep it united. It's our job to keep it conservative. Yeah. And there will be lying fake news attacks on the conservatives that are unfair. For example, there's a journalist at the CBC called Sarah Reiger, R-I-E-G-E-R, who wrote a pure fake news story involving the rebel. You can see that story at sarahreiger.ca, a website we bought especially to commemorate it. But that's my long way of saying the rebel has a new mission now that Jason Kenney is the premier, to keep him conservative and to call out the lies of the MSN. What do you think, Sheila?
I think that's exactly going to be our job. Rachel Notley doesn't have any allegiance to conservatives, so she doesn't have to keep her promises to the overwhelming number of Albertans who are conservatives. Jason Kenney campaigned on uniting conservatives and then being conservative. And all the forces of the mainstream media and all the forces within his own party, those sort of Redford leftover interlopers who never got the memo to get out of the party and go over to the Alberta party, those people are still there because they're power hungry, and they are going to be yanking him to the left. It's our job to bring him back to the right. It's not our job to be liked, it's our job to be right. And so that's what we're going to do. And I was just checking, and congratulations to me. I have a brand new MLA, Jackie Homeniuk Armstrong. I'm very excited about this.
Everyone's booing here. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but I would say that there's well over 1,500 people here just gathered.
Standing room only now.
And as more seats are called for the United Conservative Party, it just hopped up there to 49 seats, I think. The crowd is just going wild. This is going to be huge. I don't know what the government is to beat for the largest seats in Alberta history. I think it's very large. I think one government probably held nearly 90% of the seats in Alberta. But Jason Kenney sure is doing well, and I guess it's not surprising.
Chats that have come in, I want to say thanks to the folks who are super chatting. As you know, we get 70% of those funds from YouTube, so thank you. Very quickly, Big Dog Bite, $10. Ontario loves you, Alberta. That's very nice. Ken Maurice, $20. Paul Verhaeg, so happy to know the NDP is gone. Well, not gone, but reduced. $50 from TS, supporting Rebel Media from Churchill, Manitoba. Hello to Ezra, Sheila, and Keean. Chris Grabel, $35. Thanks, Ezra, Keean, and Sheila. Great coverage, and I'm thrilled to watch the NDP demise with you. Thank you.
Well, that's Chris Grabel. He was a former United Conservative Party candidate, if I'm thinking the same.
Oh, isn't that friendly? Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Ray Sepler, $50. Thank you, Rebel. I'd also like to donate my family's share of the $1.5 billion or so that our federal government gives to the CBC every year. Do you think Trudeau so will let me do that. Go Flames, go. I just want to read a couple more quick ones because I'm so grateful to folks. Oh my God, Jack Konopsky, $100. Jack, you crazy. Jack, you crazy. What are you doing? Thank you. He says, watch you guys from way back. I'm so glad it works. Sheila's a real gun. Congratulations on winning. Watch them new ones like a hawk. Oh, I tell you, we sure will. Yeah, holy moly. Well, thanks to everybody who's chipping in. Let's take an update. Keean and Sheila, are there any ridings that catch your eye where things are firming up?
I'm not looking at the ridings. What's causing me to laugh so much is I'm going through Unite Alberta. It's run by, it's a Twitter run by a Jason Kenney staffer. And it's hilarious because he put together a list of NDP staffers, so you can see in real time as they're tweeting, they're tweeting tears. It's hilarious. Bashir Mohammed is losing his mind on there. But we can go back to the polls. Edmonton Strathcona, it has 228 for the candidate there to the United Conservative Party's 28, which that's Rachel Notley's riding.
Yeah,
so
I
think it's pretty much confirmed. Jason, well, that's pretty much confirmed. Rachel Notley's going to be in the legislature. We weren't really surprised by that one. But it does mean she's going to have to resign or sit there for 4 and a bit years while Jason Kenney undoes everything that she's done for the last 4 years.
You know, JT, can you get a picture of Damnatio Memoriae for a second? You know, folks, I want to tell you about something that I book learned a long time ago when Roman emperors would succeed another, and they had rivalries and they hated each other. There was something called Damnatio Memoriae. You can sort of smoke out what it means. It means to damn the memory, to condemn the memory. And if someone was subject to this shocking order, not only would every law passed by that former emperor be nullified, every appointment undone, but they would even destroy statues. And look at this. Do you see this picture there? They even would scrape the image off of paintings or mosaics. You can see there's a missing person there. That's called Damnatio Memoriae. It's a version of what Stalin would do. He would unperson someone. Now, we don't believe in Stalinist unpersoning, but I think the central effect of Damnatio Memoriae to literally nullify every damn thing that the bad guy did. That's something Jason Kenney should consider. I cannot list a single thing that Rachel Notley has done in the last 4 years that should be preserved. I think the default action should be repeal every damn thing and start from scratch. If there was something that was really good, reintroduce it. Don't decide what to peel back. Decide what, if anything, to keep. That's my view. Damnatio Memoriae. It's got honest roots, Sheila.
I think that Jason Kenney should also fire 3 out of every 2 bureaucrats when he walks in the door. Just line them up and fire them all. Because, as you know, Rachel Notley also went on that massive public sector hiring spree, a public sector that we can't afford to have as large as it is. She hired 50,000 of them, largely in Edmonton. Really, at the end of the day, it was probably just buying votes and hiding the unemployment crisis in the public sector. So, yeah, I mean, anything that Rachel Notley touched, Jason Kenney should undo. And I think as soon as the UCP gets in there and cracks open the books, we're going to have a lot of scandals that we didn't know about on our hands, things that we couldn't find because they kicked our Freedom of Information requests down the road past the election date. I think it's just going to be a catastrophe.
Well, I bet the shredders are running in Edmonton, probably in high gear right now. Carson Sick finally reported, Ezra, and it looks like I was right. Oh my God. It looks like I was right. It was 9 votes for the NDP and 100 votes for Joseph Scow of the United Conservative Party. Almost 197 votes. So
wow.
That is just over 90%.
Well, can we look for a second at Calgary Varsity Decision Desk? Calgary Varsity is where that communist candidate named Anne McGrath ran. That's where we deployed. That's where we released the Kraken. That's where we rolled out the commie truck. And it is a nail biter there. I'm looking at Elections Alberta, and of course you can't trust them, but what else are you going to do? Right now, the UCP candidate has 1,494. And if we just zoom in there for a bit, you can see, sorry, my page just refreshed on me. Okay, the numbers just went up. So the UCP is 1,589, and the Communist, who's now running in a wolf in wolf's clothing, running as an NDP, 1,532. That's only a quarter of the votes are in. It's still a very close race. The difference is exactly 2%. Jason Copping beating the Communist NDPer Anne McGrath. Your truck might have saved the day there, Keean. I'm very nervous.
I'm expecting a basket of fruit and chocolate from the Jason Copping campaign any day here. One riding worth noting is Edmonton-Beverly Clairview. That's Darren Billis' own riding. The page keeps refreshing on me as well. 1,630 votes for the NDP to 1,100 votes for the United Conservative Party, which means almost without a doubt Darren Billis is going to be in the legislature. He's been through some tough times, as you know if you watch my report on him. His house just burnt down after he divorced his wife. It was a really weird situation, and the divorce was even weirder. There's hundreds of pages of affidavits from his wife alleging serious drug and alcohol addictions, alleging philandering with the chair of the NDP caucus. It's a really weird situation. It's weird that the mainstream media hasn't reported on Darren Billis at all. But it looks like we're going to have another 4 years to dissect that issue.
And I just checked in on Innisfail Sylvan Lake, and Devin Dreeshen, superstar Devin Dreeshen, has 1,044 votes to the NDP's 193. So I don't know which one of us is right yet, but that's looking pretty good for all the attacks and wasted man hours of press progress. But they do have the help of the likes of the Tides Foundation and Loblaws to help them write these hit pieces on Conservatives, but they're wasting everybody's money apparently.
You know what, a close one to watch is Calgary Mountain View as well. That's one where the leader of the Liberal Party, David Kahn, is running in.
Yeah.
It's where Kaylin Ford was the United Conservative Party star candidate in Calgary. She was assassinated by Press Progress's article, which had serious journalistic problems in it. Can you see it on your screen
I
right now?
absolutely can. It's a most stunning result, Calgary Mountain View. This is hard to believe for me even, and I know that the Liberals are despised, but the leader of the Liberal Party of Alberta, who was in the leaders' debate, who had all the media attention, and of course any Liberal love that there would be in the province, if you click on that word, JT, if you click on the name of the riding, it gives you a real zoom in. And Calgary Mountain View, look at that right up top there. David Kahn, the Liberal leader of Alberta, has 5.4% of the vote. That is not a typo. I did not misspeak. Now, Kathleen Ganley, who, if I recall, is the incumbent Attorney General, has 43.4. Jeremy Wong, the UCP candidate, has 40.8. So actually, it looks like the NDP might hold that, Calgary Mountain View. Again, only 9 polls reporting yet. But the fact that the Liberal leader of Alberta has 5.4%, I'd say that should be 4.4%. That sounds a bit high to me.
Yeah, they're running a bit high. Another one that we should be watching is Lethbridge West. That's the liar Shannon Phillips riding. Looks like she's in a real fight for her seat. Last refresh of the page. Oh, it did it again, but I don't know if I'm...
She's just 100 votes ahead of the United Conservative Party.
She's just 100 votes ahead, little less than 100 votes, 90 votes ahead. And we might not find out the results of that seat for quite some time because they have allowed people to vote in advance polls anywhere in the province. So those numbers won't come in for upwards of a week or so. So, I mean, that seat could go back and forth before we finally see if the liar gets to keep her seat.
Wow. I see some more super chats coming in, including an absolutely amazing super chat from my old friend Arnon Levy. Arnon, that's just incredible. Thank you so much for that support. It's great to hear from you again, and very, very generous of you. $140 contribution. Most appreciated, my friend. I hope things are well with you. Scott Kubota, $50. Delighted to support you and your team. Thanks for all you do. Well, thank you for your kind words. Bruce Dealison, great work, guys. Follow you on Twitter. Always love the candor and the dirt you uncover. Yeah. Thank you. Perry Fabris, Ezra, keep using strong language to tell truth to power, making Canada great. Thank you. Sheila and Keean, the dynamic duo, tipped the election. I really think they made a difference. I know they did. Bruce Dealison, I read that one already. Jack Konopsky, watch you guys. I'm repeating some ones there, but I want to say thanks to everybody. Salt Drinker, Ezra Honk. I think that means something, but I forget what that means. Just some amazing support. Felix Sawatsky, thank you, Rebel TV, for standing up for Albertans. The S foil, hey Notley, tak dolgo suka. I don't know what language that is. But just amazing support. Thank you so much. Just to remind folks what that is, a super chat is a live chat that Google enables, and we get 70% of the revenues. It's a hefty commission Google takes, but it's still very helpful to us because, of course, unlike the CBC state broadcaster, we get no money from the government. Sheila and Keean, what are you looking at? What ridings have caught your eye?
Well, I was just thinking that anyone who's pitching in with a super chat, if you point out your riding, if you're interested in Sheila and I talking about it, we pretty much know every candidate running in every riding. So if you're interested in us chatting about your next MLA, just let us know in the super chats. But what I'm looking at right now is Calgary Bow. Justin, the producer, might be able to pull up pictures of Deborah Drever that surfaced in 2015 after she was elected. They're all over the internet, so it should not be hard. She was posing with pictures of pot shirts and posed in a very rapey music album cover. She was and used a lot of homophobic slurs against Jim Prentice at the time and Rick McIver. She is losing her seat. She had only won that seat by 200 votes in 2015. She is losing by well over 400. Oh, actually, almost exactly 400. She has 1,097 votes, and the United Conservative Party there has 1,454. So I'm excited to see Deborah Drever lose.
You know, Keean, I'm surprised that she has that much support. I mean, A, it's in Calgary. B, she's Deborah Drever, for God's sakes, the most abominable, appalling candidate. And I ascribe this to what I mentioned before, the government sector unions. And this causes me some concern because although there are far more grassroots volunteers in the UCP. If you have a paid union boss volunteer, it still works. And it's not enough to haul Deborah Drever's political carcass across the finish line, but it may tip the balance in other ridings, don't you think?
Just like Calgary Buffalo, you're right about that. Joe Ceci is leading by 300 votes, actually exactly 300 votes. The Liberals are actually doing better in that riding than they're doing in Calgary Mountain View. Which is good, but that's Ken Hare's riding. So it's interesting to look at these provincial results and overlay them on federal ridings. There's going to be some poll-by-poll analysis done here in the next few days, just on Excel, I imagine, and we'll be able to probably project that the Liberals, I imagine, are not going to be winning any seats in Calgary. I think Ken Hare is going to lose his seat in downtown Calgary, and that's it for Calgary. Who are the Liberal MPs in Edmonton, Sheila?
We've got Randy Boissonneau and
Sohi,
yes.
Yeah, I can't speak to them exactly, but I'm fairly certain that south of Edmonton, not a single Liberal will be elected with these results.
I think you're right. I think David Kahn getting 5% probably does reflect Albertans' assessment of his party. I mean, really, it's a two-party choice here, but it's also a transmogrification of their deep hatred towards the Trudeau Liberals. I see a super chat from Kia Kinneberg, who says, I would love to hear some results for Grant Hunter in Tabor-Warner riding, please. Amazing work, Ezra, Sheila, and Keean. Who knows that one? Is that one of your ridings that you would know, Keean?
Yeah. So Grant Hunter was also a feature of a Press Progress article. I can't remember what the content of that article was, but I guess it doesn't really matter because the content of Press Progress is usually libelous and fake anyways. Tabor Warner is reporting in 630 for the NDP, 400 for the Liberals, and 3,687 for Grant Hunter. Grant Hunter, I'm not sure if he lives in that riding. I think he lives just a little bit west of it in Cardston. He moved over to that riding after the NDP redistributed everything, not just ridings but wealth as well. But he's scooted over to that rural riding, and it's clear that I don't think that they really care so much about parachute candidates in this election. They just want the NDP out. Okay, and update in Lethbridge West. That's Shannon Phillips riding. It looks like she's now behind by, it just refreshed, but she was behind by 16 votes just a moment ago. Let's find that again. 1,930 for Shannon Phillips and 1,957. Oh, so she's down by about 20 in her riding. So, and there's 700,000 advance votes yet left to count. I don't think we're going to be able to call anything within 5%. If a riding's within 5%, I just don't think that we're going to be able to call it tonight, which is unfortunate because that means we're going to have to wait to tell Anne McGrath she's never going to go to Edmonton as a representative again. I said earlier in a burst of enthusiasm that I thought there would be some riding where a UCP candidate cracks the 90% mark. I said that. There might be a few. I was just trying to be the most enthusiastic one in the room. I see there's some ridings that are pretty sturdy. Camrose, the only 18 polls there, but they're at 62%. Bonnyville, Cold Lake, 70% for the UCP candidate David Hansen. That's a good place up there. I'm going to check back at your Cardston Siksika riding that you referred to earlier. Keean, that's 75% even for Joseph Schau there. That's pretty hefty. Going back to Drayton Valley, 74% for Mark Smith, who was so defamed by the leftist activists. Let's check out Drumheller. I'm just whipping through some of these. 76.7% for Nate Horner. I think that's the highest I've seen so far. Let me just do one more, and it's my friend Bernard Hancock is running for the FCP Freedom Conservative Party in Grand Prairie. Now, he only entered the race about a week ago, and of course the FCP is the new party that Derek Fildebrandt started. Let's be candid, he did not have a statistical chance here at all, but I'm very proud to say that he is 2.6%, which is more than an independent candidate, Ronnie Rajput, more than the Alberta Independence Party, Ray Robertson. Listen, I hope he gets some more votes. He's such a good egg, and for someone who threw his hat in the ring late, I'm glad he's doing A-OK. He's a true voice of Roughnecks, even if it's not quite coming through in the polls. What do you think of that, Sheila? I think kudos to him for giving voice to the common man. He had trouble getting his campaign together. He had trouble getting a campaign manager. But you and I both know Bernard. Disorganization has never stopped him from doing something and seeing it through to the end. So I'm very excited, and I see a very bright future for someone like Bernard. I've just taken a peek over at Leduc Beaumont. Now, Leduc Beaumont is a riding that I would love to see flip back to the UCP, because right now it is under the leadership of Shay Anderson. And I would love to see Shay Anderson lose for a number of different reasons, but one of them that's near and dear to my heart is when he called the farmers and the families and the Hutterites peacefully rallying against Bill 6, extremely violent and brutal, at an event he wasn't even at. And it looks like he's losing. So he's got 729 votes to 1,221 for Brad Rutherford with the UCP. He was a great disgrace there. And again, if the shoe were on the other foot, had he been a UCP candidate, had so many of these people been UCP candidates, had Darren Billis been a UCP cabinet minister whose wife swore an affidavit filed at court on pain of perjury that he was a drug addict, had Shay Anderson made those defamation
allegations against people he didn't even meet, that they were violent. If he were a UCP candidate, he would have been drummed out, but alas, it's not fair that way. But let me say something. I just noticed a staggering super chat, the largest super chat we have ever received. And I want to say it's from someone whose nickname is Coulda, Shoulda, Woulda, who says, thanks for putting in the work to bring a full perspective to many voices who don't have the platform. Well, thank you very much for saying that and for your enormous contribution. It feels great. The fact that you would do that, I mean, of course, this live stream is free. No one has to pay a dime. The fact that you would voluntarily chip in 200 smackers tells me that you care about what we're doing, and that's the best reward of all. I see Kristen Mater chipped in 100 smackers. Thank you to Dar Peterson, 25. Hi, Ezra, Sheila, and Keean. Love the work you do. Keep it up. Thank you for that. Just some amazing support out there. Segment Warrior Goddess, thanks for your coverage. Watching from BC, right on. Just some amazing, amazing support out there. I think I read Rick Lepke, thanks for what you do. Justin is next. I hope you're right, Arnon. I read Arnon's very generous donation already. It's very encouraging to have this grassroots support, because I think we oversample, Sheila and Keean, especially you, Sheila. I know you're very active on Twitter like I am. We probably oversample our critics because we listen to the media party echo chamber, and we know it's an echo chamber, but you can't help to maybe even believe it once in a while. If you're soaking in CBC propaganda, maybe you start to believe some of it unconsciously, subconsciously. So it's great to have the reality check of this kind of support.
My way out of the office quite a bit. I get out there with the normal people, handing out the signs, distributing books, going to rallies. I know Keean's out there with normal people, talking to normal people all the time. I'm out there on the convoy. So, Twitter is an echo chamber, but I spend enough time in the real world with real people who are cheering for us to carry on every day. And I think that's pretty evident in this super chat. Just the generosity here is pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, well, we have 4,196 people watching right now, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah,
and I want to say thank you to the viewers, too. Keean, what have you been looking at while Sheila and I have been bantering a bit? What stats have you been looking up?
Still trying to fix my internet, but I'm looking at Twitter, and I'm looking at the NDP staffer feed, which I recommend everyone go and read. It's hosted by the Unite Alberta Twitter. Gerard Amani, he's an NDP staffer. Here's what he just said. Well, Alberta has spoken. Hopefully everyone can pull together for the benefit of all. In other news, I'm excited for my move to Ottawa. Surprise, surprise.
Oh, soft landing.
He's going to be getting his PhD in political science at the University of Ottawa. Well, good luck to you, Gerard. I am very happy for you, and even more happy that you're leaving Alberta. I'm really excited for this great exodus.
Yes. Get out.
You know, it is a scientific fact, and anyone who read Sheila's best-selling book called The Destroyers knows this already, but for the handful of you who haven't read The Destroyers, when Rachel Notley formed her first cabinet, there were 12 cabinet ministers and 12 chiefs of staff. 10 out of 12 of them were not from Alberta. There's 4.5 million Albertans. Surely you can find someone in Alberta to be your chief of staff. There's enough liberals, there's enough professors, there's enough even sort of fancy pants oil men who would say, well, I'm not really a socialist, but I need to serve my province. The fact that she brought in 10 out of 12 of her chiefs of staff carpetbaggers from other provinces, some of whom I bet had never even set foot in Alberta before, many of whom refused to even move to Alberta. They commuted, they couldn't stand the place. They would land, work, and get the hell out every week. They were disloyal, they were not governing, they were like imperial colonists or something. It was a disgrace, and thankfully, as we saw there on that NDP Twitter, you can find some more of those, Keean, because what a pleasure to see those carpetbaggers, as they were called after the U.S. Civil War. What a pleasure to see those carpetbaggers go home.
I will do that. I'm working on my internet situation right now, so Sheila's going to have to take the lead.
Am I? Keean, I'm going to have you keep talking because I think our camera just unplugged itself, and I got to go.
Okay, well, Ezra, we're going to leave it to you. We're having some technical difficulties here.
No problem. I'm used to talking when no one's listening, so I'll certainly do my best when 4,224 people are watching. And once again, I thank you for that. I want to say a quick shout out to Marty Locker, who just chipped in $100. That's amazing. Angela McCree, $20. Thanks for representing us. You're welcome. Big Dog Bite. Ezra is a real patriot. Well, that's nice of you to say. We try to do that here. Let me reach out to our decision desk. Can you tell me who the Premier is? Again, decision desk. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's Jason Kenney. I forgot about that. Jason Kenney, United States. I want to remind everyone watching that we were the first. Our decision desk was the first to decisively decide that the decision had been decided. And that happened at 7:50 p.m., a full 10 minutes before voting ended. That's the kind of journalism you can expect here at the Rebel. I'm joking around, of course, but of course only the CBC thought it was in doubt. Hey, Decision Desk, are there any fun video clips that you have lined up there? I thought the commie hunting truck was a great one. Are there any others? Oh yes, I just hear in my ear from the Decision Desk, aka Justin, that let me just take a minute. I mentioned Sheila's first book. Can you go to our Amazon page or just go to Amazon? I'll show the 3 books that Sheila made, and then we'll get back to the results in a second. First book was The Destroyers, and I think it was a terrifying wake-up call to most Albertans who thought, well, no, these folks can't be so bad. No, they were bad. And I am so sorry to tell you that every word in that book came true. Her second book was the unauthorized biography of David Suzuki, which came out right before the University of Alberta, in its disgrace, gave Suzuki an honorary doctorate. Could you imagine that? What a disgrace. So there's the Suzuki book. The Case Against Suzuki, an unauthorized biography. As you can see, do you see that there? #1 bestseller. You see that in orange? #1 bestseller. 97 customer reviews, average review 4 stars out of 5. And I can tell you that it's just the haters rating it 1 star who haven't even read it. And then her latest book, of course, was Stop Notley. What an amazing book that is. There we go. 4.5 stars. Bestseller. Now, I want to show you what happened when Sheila and Keean had some of our Stop Notley lawn signs and thought they'd take it to Elections Alberta, which had been harassing us. Take a look at this.
Palm sign because they don't have a clue what they're doing.
Permission to put signs up. And you have to delete the pictures, I'm afraid. You have to delete the pictures.
Delete the pictures?
Yeah.
Oh no, we're not deleting anything.
Yeah, you're not permitted on this property.
Yeah, well I'm taking them. I'm taking the signs.
Oh yeah, you take the signs.
Yeah, but I'm
you can't
not...
publish the pictures in front of our sign.
Who are you, sorry?
It's the province of Alberta. I'm the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer for Alberta.
And what's your name?
Great.
Drew Westwater.
Oh, great. Well, I think Sheila has a few words for you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure, yeah,
You'll have to remove the signs and you cannot post the pictures.
you guys are sure aficionados of censorship, aren't ya?
It's not censorship. It's non-partisan, unbiased partisan activity.
So can you tell us why the only people that you've been charging under the Elections Act is is Conservative operatives?
Elections Alberta doesn't charge anybody. That's the Election Commissioner's job.
Well, we were led to believe through your Twitter that you were, in fact, and you were forwarding information to the Elections Commissioner.
We do when that violations become to our attention. That is correct.
Right, so why did your Twitter account tell
That was
the
an error.
media? It was an error.
Yeah, it was a staff person made an error.
Yeah, well,
Who was the staff member?
Who was the staff member?
That's personal information.
It's public information, actually.
Yeah.
No.
Yes, it absolutely is.
That's all I have to say on that.
Well, I think it concerns me considering that your Twitter account said that I broke the law.
I've answered your question. Is there anything
It's
else?
an easy FOIP to figure out who the staff member was. Can you just tell us?
You cannot. We're not FOIPable, I'm afraid.
Isn't that convenient? Well, I'm sure our lawyers will figure it out. Thank you.
I look forward to talking.
Yes, I bet you do.
You know, this is a family program, and I don't like to use cuss words. Everybody knows that. But what an asshole. The funny thing is, as Sheila alluded there, the Elections Alberta office falsely claimed that they had reported us for some campaign violation when our lawyers wrote to them and said, can you give us a copy of the complaint? They admitted they made it up, and I've never seen anything like this in my life. They apologized. They agreed in an out-of-court settlement because they had falsely defamed us. They agreed to publish an apology on Twitter every day for 7 days in a row. Looks good on them, too. Sheila, back to you. Sounds like there's some excitement there. Is it because the stats of, looks like 61 seats for the UCP? Is there any hullabaloo over there?
Yeah, they're cheering as the results come in. It's just generally just random cheering after 4 long, arduous years of work for everybody in this room, I suppose, including us. Should we knock off some super chats here, boss? Yeah, do you have those in front of you? Why don't you help yourself? I see there's a huge one there. Why don't you go through some of them? Okay, I'll go back as far as I can. So Big Dog Bite gives us $10, says Ezra is a real patriot. I get a typo, but I'm not going to hold that against anybody. L. Wayne Matheson says, gives us $34.99, says keep up the great work, Ezra. We've got one from Leon Isarilis. If I'm saying that wrong, I'm very sorry, but thank you for your generous donation. No super chat there, but if you did have one, just put it back there and I'll see if I can find it. Let's go down. So Chris Hamilton says, love the rebel and happy that Notley the traitor is being exiled. Keep up the great work, team. It's more of an exorcism, isn't it? This is really fantastic. We've all worked very hard for this day.
One riding I want to point out, Ezra, is Edmonton Southwest. You might remember Casey Maddow.
Yeah, Casey Maddow.
Maddow.
Yeah.
He was the one that posed next to one of our Stop Notley lawn signs. And a Nigerian immigrant is Casey Maddow, and he was called a white supremacist by the NDP. Can you believe it? He's actually leading in Calgary West. Sorry, not Calgary West. Edmonton Southwest.
Against John Archer, the actual racist in the mix there. He's the one who tweeted out that people should vote with their race as opposed to their mind. And, then he apologized for actually tweeting it, but he never actually apologized for being a shameless racist. So I'm glad to see that Casey's winning there. I heard from people in his riding that he worked very, very, very hard for a very long time. Yeah, there's a lot of incredible things there. If you want to put those details back up for a section, for a moment, the election desk. Casey Maddow, we just heard, Nigerian immigrant to Canada, works hard, follows the rules, gets ahead, and look at that, he's got 45.5%, which is a couple hundred votes ahead of John Archer, who's at 38.9%. Take that with caution, of course, only 13 polls out of 64, but I want to say one more thing. We heard, of course, that Casey Maddow was basically called a racist by John Archer, who's a disgrace. John Archer published a disgraceful racist rant saying you should vote like you're black or something. I don't even know what it meant. I don't think he knew what it meant, but it sounded like some weird attack on his opponent. But John Archer has a special place in the pantheon of fake news, and here's what I mean by that. 4 years ago, in the last Alberta election, when Rachel Notley was installed as premier accidentally by the people of Alberta, precisely because she was not vetted in any meaningful way by the media, who was John Archer then? He was a journalist at the CBC state broadcaster covering Rachel Notley. So stay with me here. So John Archer reported every day on Rachel Notley. And then when Rachel Notley won, John Archer went to work for her. My only question was, how much back pay did he get for the favors he did in advance? And in fact, there were well over a dozen frontline journalists who covered Notley in the campaign, who were tailoring, shaping their coverage just to get that sweet, sweet gig. And it makes sense. I mean, you get a government job as a spokesman, you're making $130,000. You have half the work hours that you do when you're working in the private sector. It was a disgrace. What a deep pleasure it will be if this trend holds and Casey Maddow
puts his racist, fake news, CBC hack competitor, John Archer, back in the private sector looking for work like so many other people he himself, John Archer, helped ruin the economy for. I sure hope that Casey Madhu wins that. And thanks for letting me rant a bit about it, Sheila.
Well, we'll keep going on it. If Casey does win, right now, if you scroll through the election results, Fortress Edmonton is still completely orange. Every single seat is leaning or totally going towards the NDP, except for Edmonton Southwest, where Casey Madhu is running. If Casey Madhu gets elected, there's pretty much no way he almost absolutely will be in cabinet, which would be the icing on the cake, I think. Minister of Diversity, perhaps.
Yes. Also, I think Ezra, this is a project for me and Keean. We should compile a list of all the journalists that went to work for the NDP as either press secretaries or media spinners or issues managers, because I think some of those rats are going to be fleeing back to the private sector and angling for roles back in the mainstream media. And of course, the left-leaning mainstream media would love to have them back. I think we should have a little list so that people know through what lens these people are writing, because a lot of them stayed back in the dark recesses of the NDP bureaucracy, and a lot of regular Albertans won't know exactly who they were or what they did for the last 4 years.
You're so right. And I, as you know, am the volunteer webmaster of SarahReiger.com, SarahReiger.ca, excuse me. SarahReiger.com is a reputable realtor in the United States. SarahReiger.ca is a disreputable, unethical CBC journalist who was caught by you, Sheila, doing fake news. It's so absolutely critical that one of the roles the Rebel perform over the next 4 years is not just to hold Jason Kenney to task if he stops being a conservative, but to hold the fake news media to task when they lie. And how do we know when they lie? They move their lips. Back to you, Sheila.
I think we should knock off some of these super chats here. We've got one from Wes Hammermeister. He said he's watching from Texas. We're Canada's Texas.
Favorite state.
Yeah, looks like a great way to come back home to make Alberta great again. Thanks, Rebel. Oh boy.
While we're, do we have more there?
Yeah, of course we have more. This is the most generous crowd I've ever seen in my entire life. We've got one from Pancake Rachel Corey, says make Orwell fiction again, and one from Flower Diva. You have no super chat there, but you've given us a very generous donation. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure we're missing super chats like crazy, but there are just so many because everybody is just so generous tonight. I can't even believe it.
The live from the NDP staffer feed, Mike Morrison.
We like Mike.
My favorite NDP activist. I'll read what he said. Be sad tonight. It's a sad night, and it's okay to be sad. But when you're ready, be motivated, be thoughtful, be welcoming. We're going to have a lot of people to guide and protect, especially LGBTQ children. I think he missed a few vowels and consonants in that one. You know, this whole election, and this is a good way to cap this off. The NDP failed this election because they tried to make the ballot question be about LGBT people. They wanted it to be about GSAs. They wanted people to go to the ballot and think about gay children and that Jason Kenney was an evil man. And they absolutely failed in that regard. And this just goes to show this is what they hung their hat on. GSAs, something that was such a non-issue to nearly every Albertan. Even gay people don't care about GSAs. Seriously, they don't. But Jason Kenney ran on a platform for jobs, the economy, pipelines, and that's what resonated with Albertans. And it's hilarious to watch the NDP just lose their mind over this GSA thing that was really solved back in 2016. Oh, well, actually before the last election when Jim Prentice was elected. The legislation was enacted, and Jason Kenney never really said he was going to repeal anything. He just said that he wanted teachers who are the individuals in Alberta and across our whole country who we trust the most. There is no nobody we trust more than teachers. With our children, we leave our children with them for 8 hours a day, and for some reason the NDP don't feel that they are fit to judge whether or not parents should be brought in to conversations about their child's sexuality in the event that they need to be. Usually they don't need to be, but in the event that a grade 2 boy gets a black eye because Timmy punched him in the face because Timmy called him gay, the teacher can't tell the parent that why that happened, and the NDP want parents to keep secrets. Teachers to keep secrets from parents, and Albertans decisively told the NDP to go to hell on that issue today, which I couldn't be more happy about.
You know, we've played some interesting videos, some of my favorites from Sheila and Keean over the last 4 weeks, and I think that, and we showed some of the billboards too, the Fire Egan billboard that Keean unveiled on the highway, the Fire Phillips billboard. Unfortunately, it looks like Egan won't be fired. Hopefully, Phillips will be fired. But I myself, if I may, had a moment of, if I may take a little bit of pride and joy. And I had Sheila's help on the ground for it. Decision Desk producer Justin, can you please call up my investigation into the fake $400 million loan guarantee that Rachel Notley gave to a once insolvent company that defaulted on a $500 million credit facility. And I just want to show a little bit of it, partly because I'm proud of that journalism, thank you, sorry, but also because it speaks to, I want to play the opening just a couple minutes. I don't want to play the whole thing, because it shows you have this theater-style meeting room in the legislature, I presume, where Rachel Notley made a campaign-style announcement. And the journalists asked no critical questions. They were stenographers. And to this day, other than a brief mention on one radio show, I have never seen any mainstream media in the province cover it. So we have a moment. Let me just, I see the Decision Desk has some news about Jason Kenney. Oh yes, that's right, sorry. Hey guys, did I mention that Jason Kenney's the Premier of Alberta now? Oh, I did, right. I called that at 7:50. Okay, sorry, I interrupted myself. I want to play for you a little bit of a video. It speaks to the economic illiteracy of Rachel Notley. It speaks to the gullibility of the media party, and it speaks to the importance of having independent journalists who will hold the government to account no matter what. And finally, it speaks to a team effort, because we actually, all three of us, I think, were involved a little bit in this story. Can you play a bit of it for our viewers? Days ago, Alberta Premier Rachel Notley announced that she was giving a $440 million loan guarantee to a Calgary company called Value Creation that's building a massive new oil sands upgrader near Edmonton. Here, take a look at this 30-second video that Notley released. You can see her there with Dr. Columba Young, the president and majority owner of the company.
I'm very proud to be here today to partner with Made in Alberta companies like Value Creation. This Calgary-based company is on track to invest $2 billion in a new upgrading facility in the industrial heartland outside of Edmonton. It's going to create over 2,000 jobs. Our government is proud to be helping to make this happen. We make energy that's better for the climate. We make energy that's better for our economy. And we make energy using the best people on earth to make it Albertans.
In addition to that campaign-style ad, the government of Alberta put out an official press release. Let me quote a few lines from it. Calgary-based Value Creation, Inc. and its wholly owned subsidiary Value Chain Solutions, Inc. is on track to invest $2 billion in an upgrading facility in the Alberta industrial heartland, just east of Edmonton, which will create more than 2,000 construction jobs and another 200 full-time positions once the facility is up and running. Notley went even further, saying, quote, "Construction of the Strathcona County-based project is already underway." Notley made this announcement in a packed room of reporters who gave her the positive media coverage she needs for her campaign. It was a great day for Notley because it proved that she could get massive investments in the oil patch, and the construction's already underway on this amazing new upgrader. Except it's a lie. It's just not true. Sorry, I wish it were true. I wish someone really was willing to invest $2 billion into an oil sands upgrader. I wish that construction really was underway, but it's not. Our Alberta Bureau Chief, Sheila Gunn Reid, went to the project site last week, which just happens to be down the road from her home. There is no activity there at all. There is no construction already underway. There is no construction at all. It is mainly empty fields. It looks like there was some construction 10 years ago, but then it was abandoned. They haven't put a shovel in the ground in a decade. What little construction there was a decade ago now looks a bit like those ruined old buildings in Detroit. Look at it. Sheila drove around the property for an hour. She confirmed that it was the property in question from the signs on the fence. I looked at a map as well. I phoned the industrial park where this abandoned property is located. They didn't even know what I was talking about at first. They did confirm that Value Creation does own the land, but nothing has been done on it in a decade. They had to look it up. They were so unfamiliar with it. So why did Rachel Notley specifically say that construction is already underway? Why would she lie like that? I went on the website of the company. Other than a copy of Rachel Notley's press release, which you can see at the top there, the website hasn't been updated in years. I clicked on their news releases page, and there was actually nothing there at all. I clicked on their recent events page, and there was nothing there. In fact, the page looks broken. Notley says construction is already underway, and they're about to hire 2,000 people, but their website page to hire people, it doesn't even work. So I did something that I don't think any of those media party journalists who wrote gushing stories about Notley.
If you're like me, then you like...
Oh, there's an ad that kicked in, saved you from watching another half hour of me. But what we discovered is that Rachel Notley announced a $440 million loan guarantee to a company that was dormant, that had no operations, that had no construction, had no plans for construction, and had in fact defaulted on a $500 million loan. It was an incredible story, and I won't make you watch any more of it now. You can find it on our website for the rest of it. But in a way, it was not ever actually about the refinery. It was about the fact that every journalist in that theater were stenographers just regurgitating. Not one of them asked a question. Not one of them called the company. Not one of them went to the land. But the Rebel did. This little outfit of the three people you see here. We broke that news. Now, out of the corner of my eye, I see something most amazing.
Yes.
I see a $500 super chat from I.B. Jarvis, who said, "Love you, never stop." Well, my dear friend, and I'm calling you that now because anyone who chips in $500 in a super chat is my dear friend. I thank you for that. And there's only one thing to do when a guy gives you $500, and you think, what can I possibly do in return? Well, there's only one thing, and it's to keep doing what you're doing, because obviously that's what people want. And I promise you, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I know Sheila and Keean well enough to know they're going to keep doing what they're doing. So thank you, Mr. Jarvis, for that incredible support. I appreciate that. Sheila and Keean, how are you doing? We gave you a 5-minute break there when we were playing that video of the refinery. What's the news that you've been tracking?
Well, I'm going to go back to Shannon Phillips, the big fat liar, back to her riding and see what's happening there.
Speaking of Shannon Phillips, it might be interesting to play my video of my tour around southern Alberta, where we handed out our Stop Notley signs right outside of our office. The amount of Lethbridge folk that just came out, they were so upset with the Bighorn consultations and another park that is slipping my mind right now. But there was two, wasn't there? It wasn't just the Bighorn consultations that Shannon Phillips botched. No, it was a lot more than that.
The carbon tax, the lying.
Sure, no.
You know what?
Keean, come on.
I'm going to ask our decision desk. Sheila's main video on Fire Phillips, was one of the most powerful things we've ever done. And I remember watching it 3 times, Sheila, and it was just that good. JT, can you tee up the Fire Phillips video? It's a reminder. We've been talking a lot about oil and gas, and as well we should.
Yeah.
We've been talking about social engineering, radical leftism, things of that sort, as well we should. But Sheila, do you have any introduction, or should we just jump right into this video, which shows the Notley NDP war on rural and small town Alberta? Do you want to preface it, or should we just jump right in?
You know, I think we could jump right in. I mean, no, let me explain. Ever since the NDP took power, they've had this ongoing battle with rural Alberta and chasing people off the land they've traditionally used, because these office-dwelling bureaucrats in Edmonton have decided that they know the best way to take care of the land that you've used for generations. We first saw the NDP do it in the Castle area, where they changed the land use there, and outside of maybe me, because I use the land there, and the people in the area, in like the Crow's Nest Pass area, it didn't get a lot of play, and the media didn't really understand why people were so mad about it. They said, well, who could possibly be mad at a park? Well, it wasn't that they were mad at a park. It was mad at the implication that they weren't taking care of the land. And it was part of a greater problem. These parks were being created by the influence of foreign-funded organizations that were using things like the grizzly bear habitat to make the land off-use, incidentally, for hunters and quatters and random campers, but for also oil and gas development, which is, I think, the real sinister part in all of this. And so once they did it in the Crow's Nest Pass area, then they tried to do it in the Bighorn. But the people in the Bighorn saw them coming, and they didn't lie down and take it the way Shannon Phillips and Rachel Notley had expected them to.
All right, well, let's go. It was a powerful video. We won't play the whole thing because it's a little too long, but I encourage you to watch the rest of it on our website. Here is Sheila Gunn Reid's case to fire Phillips.
Shannon Phillips is a liar. We just can't trust her. And that's why I need your help to fire her. The consultations on the Bighorn land use changes are not going the way the NDP government wants them to. Now, the changes will make vast tracts of land in an enormous portion of Western Alberta off limits to the very people who live there and use the land every day. These are currently public lands for the use of the public, and they're being rezoned to become a provincial park with new owner rules. Citizens who live in these areas are resistant to having their backyard playground redesigned by a bunch of cubicle-dwelling New Democrat bureaucrats up in Edmonton. And now, the NDP government has just cancelled these consultations. In fact, the Environment Minister Shannon Phillips is the one responsible for cancelling the consultations. Here is her press release. I have heard stories of afraid community events. Albertans berated in public, Albertans followed home, and Albertans feeling intimidated to not speak their mind or participate in this important discussion. These reports are not only deeply concerning, this behavior is not reflective of the values we all share. I call on all of my elected colleagues to denounce the bullying and harassment being faced by Bighorn supporters. As we do not feel we can guarantee the public safety or freedom from intimidation at this time, I am very disappointed to announce that the upcoming sessions for Drayton Valley, Red Deer, Sundre, and Edmonton will be cancelled. But in a dangerous act of journalism, Calgary Herald's Leisha Corbella actually reached out to the police for comment. This is from Corbella's article. Constable Mike Hibbs, the media relations officer for Alberta's RCMP K Division Southern District, said Monday that he hadn't heard of any threats. I'm not aware of any threats at all, said Hibbs. But Phillips persisted in her lies. This is from the CBC. You see, Phillips also told reporters the next day after the cancellations that advice from the RCMP and security officials, along with reports of harassment, prompted the government to cancel the open houses. Now, Fraser Logan of the RCMP said the police service did not provide any official advice to the government. In short, Phillips lied. In a teleconference with reporters Wednesday, Phillips said the RCMP were investigating at least 2 complaints. She said, "I know that there are at least 2 open files with file investigation numbers with respect to allegations of safety concerns for the public in and around in central Alberta." But again, the police busted her lies. From the same CBC article, Alberta RCMP can confirm that we do not have any ongoing investigations relating to the consultations. That, again, is Fraser Logan, the RCMP spokesperson. Phillips has lied repeatedly, both about the RCMP and the citizens affected by her massive land use changes. She lied to smother democracy to prevent those voices in the affected communities from being heard. She doesn't want to hear from those residents, so she's willing to lie about them and ruin their reputations. She's not just a pathological liar. She's a defamer of citizens. She's an abuser of state authority. And she's a
It's an amazing video. It goes on a little bit, and Sheila, of course, announces the billboard to fire Phillips. I just checked, and it looks like Phillips is ahead by about 40 votes. It's very close, less than 1%. I'm worried because, like I say, when you have the professional protest community, when you have government sector unions as your get out the vote army, I think you have a systemic advantage. And of course, as was alluded to earlier, there was a quirk in the voting that you could vote in any riding other than your own for an advance poll. So there are still pools of up to 5 or 10% for any given riding that have not yet been apportioned or counted yet. And it is my suspicion that those tilt towards the NDP because they favor the party better organized. Those are my thoughts on that. Sheila, I have to say that Fire Phillips video was very stirring to me, and I think it has obviously made an impact on rural Alberta. Not just your video, but the contempt that the NDP have held Albertans in rural parts since Bill 6, since the beginning. That contempt is mutual, though. I just was looking through various ridings. I see some ridings 75, 76% for the UCP. New Democrats hate rural Albertans, and they return the feelings.
I'm just going to do a quick reminder of all the ridings we've been watching here. Calgary-Bow, that's Deborah Drever's riding. She is significantly behind. I can say with absolute certainty, Deborah Drever will not be an MLA in this legislative session. Calgary Varsity, Anne McGrath is trailing by 200 votes. Every time this page refreshes, both the UCP and the NDP get more and more votes, but Anne McGrath is staying behind by about 200 votes, which might mean that even with the advance poll votes, if they break somewhat evenly, she won't win. It's good news. Mountain View, that's the riding where David Kahn is running. David Kahn is losing. There's no chance he is going to win, but it looks like the NDP are actually going to win, even though the Liberals did take out quite a few, split the vote with the NDP. It looks like the NDP are still going to edge through there. Calgary Southeast, that one we haven't talked about quite yet. The United Conservative Party is leading there by a significant margin. That's the one where Eva Kariakos was running. Yeah, she was one of the people assassinated by Press Progress as well. She resigned from the United Conservative Party campaign, resigned her candidacy, which I think was a little bit unfortunate. She was an Iraqi refugee. Just similar to Casey. I don't think Casey Madu was a refugee per se, but in the similar vein, they have very similar experiences coming from another country. And Eva came from Iraq, and what she did was on Facebook, she posted an image of that said rape refugees. It was perhaps in bad taste, but she was a refugee herself. Actually, you know what? I can't even say that's in bad taste. It's her opinion, and she's allowed to have it. And it looks like her constituents would have still elected her regardless, because it's an overwhelming victory for the United Conservative Party in Calgary Southeast. I forget the guy who's running there now. I think his name is Jones something. But it looks like he's going to be an MLA now. So that he was appointed by the board of directors, actually, which was a weird way to nominate an MLA. They just didn't have much time to put forward a candidate. But he just found out about 2 weeks ago he was going to run, and now it looks almost certainly like he's going to win. Edmonton Strathcona, Rachel Notley's riding. She is leading fivefold. There's no way she's losing there. But Edmonton Southwest, where we were looking at Casey Madu, he is still in the lead after over 6,000 votes have been counted. He's just leading by about 200 votes as well. Brooks Medicine Hat. There's the independent candidate here, Todd Beasley. He has the most votes out of any independent candidate in the entire province. 1,500 votes to an independent candidate is almost unheard of. I don't know if an independent candidate has ever been elected in Alberta. I'm not that good with my history, but I think this is a significant victory. Michaela Glasgow, though, is running away with that. She has almost 10,000 votes. She'll be one of the first few people to break 10,000 votes.
Mark McQuaig-Boyd lost her seat. The Energy Minister lost her seat to Todd Lowen in the redistributed riding of Central Peace Notley, named after Rachel Notley's dad, that riding. Let's have a peekaboo here.
Well, of course, the most important riding in my books is that of Calgary Varsity. That is where the unrepentant, unreformed, unreconstructed communist named Anne McGrath thought she could sneak in to public office with the assistance of the media party, who did not reveal that odious fact about her. Keean was like a dog who would not give up a bone. And it was so incredible. In fact, Decision Desk, could you find the vid where Anne McGrath at a community forum felt the need to address her communist past? That clip, I think it's pretty close to the beginning of that vid, but it showed we're not just joking around when we say she was a communist, and when we say that Keean made the difference. Because I'm looking at that riding right now, 45.4% for the UCP candidate, 42.7% for the communist NDP candidate. The difference between them is about 215 votes. It's narrow, but I think the commies lost. Look at this clip. This is Keean, who had been asking questions that no other journalist would, and obviously it was starting to show up. The NDP were detecting this at the doors and the phones. So look at this commie, who has been a communist for 30, 40, 50 years, and then on the 11th hour and 59th minute, right before the election, she says, "Oh, guys, I never really meant to." Take a look at this.
A communist candidate running for the NDP. And you are the 1%. You really are the 1%. $200,000 in a year Rachel Notley gave you. Do you feel like you should redistribute that to the proletariat?
I want to acknowledge also something that's come up about my youth, and I want to assure you that I am not a communist. 4 decades ago, when I was a young student...
Actually, sorry, I wrapped it up a little earlier there. Could you put that back up? Just that, because she talks about her communism for another minute. Sorry, I waved our Decision Desk to end the clip, but she actually talks about it a little bit longer. So just her at the forum felt the need to address the fact that she had been revealed to be a communist. Take a look.
About my youth. And I want to assure you that I am not a communist. 4 decades ago, when I was a young student, I was a member, and I deeply regret that. It was a mistake, and I'm very sorry. I will say that both Jason Kenney and the Communist Party agree and have publicly stated that I am definitely not a communist.
And do you think that the residents of Calgary Varsity accept your apology? And do you think that the residents of Calgary Varsity accept your apology? Well, we made some progress today.
That was progress. That's Keean Bexte's work. I have to say, if someone's willing to be a communist, they just might be willing to lie about it, too. And I know you must be thinking, Ezra, why are you talking about communists? Well, look, after the Second World War, we had denazification programs of the Nazis, not of every Wehrmacht soldier. Not every single German was a Nazi. But those who were Nazis, they were reintegrated into German life, but they had to be denazified. I actually knew a German prisoner of war. He was in the Hitlerjugend. He was a teenager, captured immediately before he even fired a shot. He was shipped to Alberta to serve out the remainder of the war. It was only a few months till the end of the war, in a prison of war camp in Alberta. And he liked it so much that he asked to stay. He asked to immigrate to Alberta. I won't say his name, but he's a very successful, outstanding Canadian citizen. And he told me that before he was allowed to stay and apply to immigrate to Alberta, he had to take a denazification class and pass a denazification exam. That was no problem for him. He never believed in it. He was a teenager pressed into service in the final months of the war. But my whole point is, if we denazified the Nazis, why did we never decommunist the commies? In fact, they're regarded as some sort of clever parlor conversation. Anyways, thanks for letting me tell you that story. I see some more super chats come in. Don Sharp, $21. Great to see so many NDP accidental candidates be dismissed. Still too many for my liking. Don, I agree completely. I had estimated that there would be 70 UCP candidates. There's only 61. Forgive my exuberance there. TJ, $20. Hi, Ezra and company. This is such a fun way to watch the election. Hope you cover the federal election this fall too. Oh, you bet we will. And thank you for your super chat. Alex Lucas for $70. It's very generous of you. Thank you for that. I already mentioned IB Jarvis is $500. I can't even believe that. That's incredible. Sheila and Keean, it's now almost 10 o'clock Mountain Time, and the polls have been closed for almost 2 hours. What are the ridings that are still in doubt? It seems to me that almost all of Edmonton, with maybe one exception, is NDP Orange. Yep. Every single riding in the rural parts is UCP Blue, every single one. Yep. And most of Calgary, too. Is there something you're following?
You know, of course, Lethbridge, you mentioned that the advanced votes might break towards the NDP. I suggest the advanced votes will probably break before towards the UCP. It's my opinion that...
Sheila, I'm going to interrupt you again. I'm sorry, and I'm not going to interrupt with my humorous reference to Kenney as Premier. I understand that Rachel Notley is speaking. I think we have that feed. Yes. So I think we're going to try and put it through. We're going to test our... Session time! We're going to test our technical abilities here to connect to Rachel Notley. And I hope that doesn't cause everyone to flee.
I am enormously proud of our record, and you all should be too. And let me begin by saying to every girl and every young woman watching tonight, I believe in you, and never stop believing in yourself. I hope that we have shown you that in your life, anything is possible. And you know, sometimes it can feel like you take 2 steps forward and then 1 step back. But may you never, ever stop taking those steps forward. And for those of us who are working for a more progressive Alberta, this may feel like a step back, but remember, we have made tremendous progress. As I said, Albertans turned to us at a very challenging time. The oil price collapse hit us hard, exposing deep vulnerabilities in our economy. And through patient and determined action, we began the hard work of lasting change. Today in Alberta, we are acting like the owners of our resources again, upgrading more of the resources we own, turning them into the products the world needs, and creating the jobs that Albertans deserve. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. We are closer than ever to building a pipeline to Tidewater and getting those resources to new markets. that, my friends, we are preparing for the economy that's coming, expanding renewables and investing in ideas and innovation. And today in Alberta, the lowest paid among us make a better living. The best in Canada. Because we raise the minimum wage, because we believe all work has dignity and all work should be rewarded.
Of course, it's a lie. The poorest Albertan does not make $15 an hour. The poorest Albertan makes $0 an hour, almost 200,000 people out of work because of the disastrous policies of Rachel Notley. She wouldn't know it because she is surrounded by government union workers, including her husband, who is a lobbyist for a union. Should we watch any more of her speech, Sheila and Keean? Are you interested in hearing more blather?
I have been waiting 4 long years for that speech. Actually, you know what? I've been waiting longer to hear the final concession speech from the progressive premiers that we've had since Ralph Klein. I had the misfortune of living in BC for the last days of Ralph Klein's premiership. So when I came back home to Alberta, I was greeted by Ed Stelmach, then Alison Redford, then Dave Hancock, then Jim Prentice, and then then Rachel Notley. And I am glad that I will never have to hear another word out of her mouth as my premier. I'm wondering if we can get any information on where Jason Kenney is right now. He's taken a while to get out. I would have expected he would have been out here already with the crowd because his victory here today is just decisive. We're looking at 61 seats to the United Conservative Party, 26 seats to the NDP.
Too high.
And no other parties look like they're going to be in the 30th legislature of Alberta, which I think is to our misfortune. I think it would have been better to have a wide variety of views in the legislature, especially to the right of the UCP, but it doesn't look like that's what Albertans wanted today.
Well, yeah, and I'm happy to see a low number of NDP, although it still remains a bit too high for me. But as someone pointed out to me earlier today, that still is enough NDPers to prosecute once those books get cracked open and people really see their malfeasance over the past 4 years. There's enough NDPers left to hang that around their neck and remind Albertans what they did to us for 4 years. Because in politics, memories are short, and I wouldn't want people to forget what we've just lived through here in Alberta the last 4 years. So while it is a tad high for me, I predicted 23. That's still enough NDPers to sit in the legislature. So when we really see how they colluded with foreign-funded radicals to landlock Alberta's oil and gas, which is what I think we'll see when we finally get a look at what's going on in the Environment Ministry, that's enough NDPers to really hold accountable for that.
Yeah.
I'm stunned by how close Lethbridge West still is. Too. It's 6,000 votes apiece, almost 6,000 votes apiece. 5,998 for Shannon Phillips and 5,962 for the United Conservative Party candidate there. What is surprising is how well the Liberal candidate is doing there. I drove through Lethbridge, as you remember, when I was handing out Stop Notley signs. What I found kind of funny was the Liberal candidate in that area had orange signs. All of the Liberal signs across Alberta had a bit of an orange. Yeah, they had a bit of a burnt orange hue to them. But in Lethbridge West, the signs were just straight up orange. So I think that's pretty funny. It confused a few of my friends in Lethbridge who were looking to vote NDP. Yes, I do have some friends who vote NDP. They're from high school, so you'll have to. The crowd starts booing right after I say that. But if the Liberal candidate can pull up enough votes right out from under Shannon Phillips' feet, it looks like the United Conservative Party might win there, especially if the advanced polls lean towards the UCP there.
You know, I'm looking at Rimbey, Rocky Mountain House, Sundre.
Jason Nixon's riding.
Those are some great little towns north of Calgary. Sundre is where my friend, my late friend Myron Thompson was the mayor once. Jason Nixon of the UCP has 78.9%. I see there is no Liberal candidate there. I think it's against the town bylaws to be a Liberal in Sundre. I could be wrong. And because there is no Liberal who wants to be there, no one's challenged that bylaw as unconstitutional. So I think that everyone's happy with that. The Green Party has 1.5%, Freedom Conservative 1.2%, and the NDP is 10.4%. I gotta say, Rocky Mountain House, Rimbey, Sundre looks like a pretty nice place to be from, Sheila.
Yeah, you know what, I like it there. I spend a lot of time in there in the summer. I have family there. It's a place where they still do RCMP patrol on horseback on some of the trails. So it's a pretty conservative place. And Jason Nixon was also subject to a Press Progress hit piece. And this is another foreign-funded Press Progress failure. You know, maybe there's a golden touch.
Well, his story was a little bit weird, and I was interested in Jason Nixon's story because what Press Progress said, and I hate to give Press Progress any credit, but to be fair, it wasn't them that uncovered the story. It was other mainstream media hacks. It sounds like Nixon accosted a police officer, which I think is one of the most abysmal things people can do. It's unfortunate that he's with the United Conservative Party, and I hate to harp on him, but at the end of the day, it looks like he did some pretty unfortunate things to a police officer.
Charges were dropped, though. Let's just preface that. Charges were completely dropped, and there was a peace bond entered into between him and a lady, which you know, that's not an admission of guilt. It's just an agreement to stay the heck away from each other, which from all of the things that I read is probably a good idea for everybody involved. So if I were a UCP candidate going forward, if I saw my name in the pages of Press Progress, I'd consider that the golden touch of the angel wing, because they've really failed tonight.
You know, I'm looking at Innisfail, Sylvan Lake. That's where Devin Dreesen, who wore the MAGA hat, was from. I erroneously said he was going to get 90%. In fact, he only got 71.4%.
Shame.
So, you know what, I guess I was about 5-10% in the whole province. I thought, you know what, the polls, let me say this. I'm looking at the unofficial results for the entire province. So far, in aggregate, the UCP has 53.5% of the vote, and the NDP has 32.9% of the vote. So actually, I think that the UCP outperformed a tiny bit, and the NDP underperformed a tiny bit. It's just that the NDP vote was all glomped together in Edmonton.
Yeah, it was very inefficient support for the NDP. What I also think is interesting about this election is that the Liberal support is at an all-time low. It really is. And it's interesting because the Liberals are disappearing across Canada. The Liberal caucus in Ontario can now fit in a minivan. There will be no Liberal caucus in Alberta. The Liberals are where are Liberal governments in Canada now? Federally, there's one. I think Newfoundland has another. Besides that, PEI maybe? I don't really follow the maritime provinces too much, but Liberals are disappearing across Canada, and I think that is a great thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, listen, I want to take a moment and catch up on Super Chats. Yes. JT, are there any Super Chats that you think we've missed? There's been some amazing ones, and I'm blown away. I don't think I've recognized Alex Lucas, who's in for $70. Thank you for that. We've already mentioned. I think that's it for a while. Just a reminder to folks what a Super Chat is. Marty Locker for $100. Leon Israelis $100. That's a way to make your comment in bright highlighted color. And the amazing thing is that we get 70% of that, so it's a good way to put a little bit of dough in our jeans because we're not getting it from the media party. Speaking of which, Sheila, can you see from your perch there the faces, the long faces of the media party? Are there any tears? Is there any foot stomping? Are there any bickering fights? What's going on over there at the state broadcaster?
Okay, so they've all evacuated their media perches beside us. It's just a long, probably 6 or 7 banquet tables length of empty tables, with the exception of 3 or 4 people. I see our frenemy Jason Markusoff, he's tweeting, obviously, and Sarah Lyer, the Ryger, she's down there furiously typing away something probably fake news. And there's one more journalist way at the end, but nobody's even at the media table anymore. They must be down at the cash bar drowning their sorrows. Putting a tear in their beer, or they left entirely.
We know they wanted to be at the NDP headquarters. It was just their boss probably told them they had to come here. Jason Markusoff just punched the wall.
He did.
Well, that's really funny. You know, are there any therapy dogs or grief counselors that have been brought in to assist the CBC in this tough time?
You know, I wish I had known. I would have brought down some comfort chickens and just let them cluck around all over the place here and snuggle up to these mainstream media yahoos that used to be beside us but aren't. But they still have their computers here, so they're here. They're just done reporting because they can't take it anymore.
Right. Well, let's look at some of the poll results. And I say again, I mentioned this a while back, but we probably have some new viewers. Because there's a quirk in the early voting, if you were voting in an advance poll, you actually did not have to vote in your own neighborhood, even in your own riding or city. And so my understanding, and Sheila and Keean, correct me if I'm wrong, is that a significant number of votes, it may be 100,000, I forget the exact number, maybe you know it, have not been apportioned yet. And in ridings that are only a few percent difference between the UCP and the NDP, those advanced polls, which have not been counted yet, could make a real difference. Do we know the quantum of votes we're talking about that have not been revealed and counted tonight?
Yes.
About a fifth.
Yeah, it's about a fifth of the votes. 700,000 people voted in the advance polls, but I think Jason Kenney is coming out. Does that sound?
There's a video that's going to play before he joins, and then campaign staff have reported to me that his truck is actually going to drive into this arena that we're in. But the video is very loud. It's playing behind us. I wonder if the producer can get it on the screen right now. It's played a few times. It's quite a touching video, as most of these campaign videos are. They put a lot of money into these.
It's not as good as that ad that they did for my book today, though. Not even close.
No, fair enough. But can we get that?
They've got it.
Unfortunately, we were unable to get their video feed, but we do have a shot of the stage. So if they're going to be driving the truck in there, which I think is pretty fun, we will see that.
Great. Yeah, the truck will be pulling up right underneath the Alberta flag. It will be a very patriotic moment. Jason Kenney is known for a few things, and he's a patriot for sure. So there's going to be a lot of pageantry in this.
Yeah.
I think in this performance that we're expecting to see. I wouldn't be surprised if there were a few performances tonight as well. He likes to bring in the Chinese community to do some dragon dancing. I'm just waiting to see. I'm looking at it here on my screen as well, and I imagine that it's going to be just a few minutes that he comes on stage here. In the meantime, though, we can look at some polling results and go through the usuals. Calgary varsity. Anne McGrath is losing now by 400 votes. The margin has doubled now in her trailing the UCP candidate Jason Copping there. Edmonton Glenora, where Sarah Hoffman is, 77 out of 82 polls have reported there now, and she's ran away with it, doubled the support of the UCP candidate there. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if she was the leader of the NDP tomorrow, the interim leader at least.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about the very high numbers for the UCP in the rural parts, but there are some high numbers as well for the NDP in Edmonton. Laurie Sigurdsson, for example, in Edmonton Riverview has 53%. I suppose that's not a staggering number. There are some very high numbers. Edmonton Gold Bar, the NDP there has 58%. Yeah, that's just Edmonton for you. They really were spared a lot of the worst of the recession because they had an artificial boom. Things were great there, as Sheila mentioned, more than 50,000 new jobs. It really is the golden age for government sector union workers. Why wouldn't they vote for the party to continue? It's just the makers of the province got a little sick with the takers of the province, I think.
You're right. Cardston 6, Sitka, my home riding. It's turning out it's not as big of a blowout as I thought it would be, but it is still a significant margin. Joseph Scow is over. Oh, Jason Kenney's coming right now.
Oh, it sounds like Jason Kenney's coming on the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, the leader of the UCP and your new premier, Jason Kenney.
What a great day for the province of Alberta. Friends, today our great province has sent a message to Canada and the world. Alberta is open for business. Friends, this democratic decision is a message to all of those Albertans who are struggling, to the unemployed, to those who have given up, to the small business owners barely hanging on, to the young people who got their degrees and their diplomas but can't find work, to those who have lost their homes and their hope after years of economic decline and stagnation. To them, we send this message. Help is on the way and hope is on the horizon. Albertans, Albertans have elected a government that will be obsessed with getting this province back to work. A team that will do everything in our power every single day to create tens of thousands of good jobs, by restoring investor confidence, by unleashing the job-creating power of our entrepreneurs, by taking Alberta from being the slowest moving and most over-regulated economy in Canada to being one of the freest and fastest moving economies in the world. So tonight I send an important message to businesses everywhere. If you want to benefit from what will be the lowest taxes in Canada, if you want to benefit from a government that will cut its red tape burden by 1/3, if you want to benefit from Canada's most educated population and a deep culture of enterprise and innovation, help us. Come here, invest here, create jobs here, renew the Alberta advantage here. And tonight, we send a message to our fellow Canadians from coast to coast. This is very important. Friends, to our fellow Canadians, we Albertans are proud Canadians. And tonight we have elected a government that will stand up and secure a fair deal for Alberta in this great country. There is a deep frustration in this province, a sense that we have contributed massively to the rest of Canada, but that everywhere we turn, we are being blocked in and pinned down. Albertans have contributed over $600 billion to the rest of Canada through fiscal federalism in recent decades. And until recently, we've been a key engine of Canada's prosperity, of growing the middle class, of economic progress, and of social mobility. Our population has doubled in recent decades as we've welcomed newcomers from every corner of Canada, people who often left behind the despair of unemployment to enjoy the dignity of work in Alberta's opportunity society. We Albertans are proud to have helped our fellow Canadians when times were good here and tough elsewhere. But now Albertans are going through a time of trial. We have the highest unemployment outside of Atlantic Canada. Nearly 200,000 Albertans are out of work. Thousands of businesses have closed their doors. Incomes are down. Bankruptcies are up. This is in part because we cannot get our energy to global markets at a fair price. So we Canadians have been blessed with the world's third largest oil reserves and an abundance of natural gas. But we have been targeted. We have been targeted by a foreign-funded campaign of special interests seeking to landlock Canadian energy. This means that we Canadians have become captive to the United States as the only market for Canada's largest export product, our energy. As a result, we've been selling our country's greatest asset at fire sale prices, losing billions of dollars of value that belongs to us. That means we've lost money that could have built schools and hospitals across Canada. This giveaway of our energy has caused the flight of tens of billions of dollars of investment from Alberta, and with it the loss of tens of thousands of jobs. And we are subsidizing in the process the U.S. economy, while the investment that has fled Canada is fueling an unprecedented oil boom south of the border. It just doesn't make sense, does it? Friends, what I'm doing is explaining to Canadians who are listening the reality that we are living through. Meanwhile, the foreign-funded special interests campaigning against Canadian energy have done precisely nothing to stop the doubling of oil production in the United States or to reduce by one single barrel energy coming from OPEC dictatorships or Vladimir Putin's Russia. In other words, friends, we Canadians have been had. And in Ottawa, we have a federal government that has made this bad situation We have in Ottawa a federal government that has made a bad situation much worse, killing two major pipelines, including Energy East, that would have helped our friends in Quebec and Atlantic Canada displace foreign oil with Canadian energy. That same federal government is imposing. Go for it. sorry. I got to correct you. We never should have ended up with the faint hope of one pipeline. It's build those pipes. So that same federal government is imposing new laws that will make it impossible to get pipelines approved in the future. And we have provincial governments that have tried to block our energy. But friends, tonight, all of that changes. Tonight, Albertans have decided that we will no longer passively accept the campaign of defamation against the industry that has helped to create one of the most prosperous and generous societies on earth. So tonight, we say to our fellow Canadians, let us unite together to unleash Canada's full economic potential. Let us renew the promise of Confederation as a true economic union. Let us begin a new era in Canada, putting behind us all the barriers to trade and mobility that make us poorer. We Albertans love our natural environment, and we seek to preserve it. We take seriously the challenge of climate change. We are world leaders in innovating to reduce emissions and shrink the environmental footprint of Canadian energy. And we are united in the need to continue diversifying our economy. But as long as there is a growing global demand for oil and gas, the question is, who will provide it? Will we abandon global energy markets to dictatorships that spread conflict and violence around the world? Or will Canada compete with and displace conflict oil with Canadian energy that is produced at the highest environmental, human rights, and labor standards on earth? That's the question. Fellow Canadians, the world needs more Canada. The world needs more Canadian energy. This is not just about our shared prosperity. It is also a moral cause. Now, let me thank the growing alliance of provincial governments who are champions of jobs, pipelines, and our resources. Thank you especially to my friends, Premiers Moe of Saskatchewan, Pallister of Manitoba, Ford of Ontario, Higgs of New Brunswick, and McLeod of the Northwest Territories. I look forward to deepening our work together to create jobs and shared prosperity. Let me also, this is very important, let me also thank the growing number of progressive Indigenous leaders across Canada who want to be partners in responsible resource development. Alberta's government will sit down with you in the spirit of the treaties, in the spirit of reconciliation, to develop real partnerships that can help move First Nations people from poverty to prosperity through resources. We will create the Aboriginal Opportunities Corporation to help First Nations become co-owners of pipelines and other major resource projects. Because, friends, the time has come to move beyond symbolic gestures to real, concrete measures for Indigenous people to benefit from the resources that lie beneath the lands that they first inhabited. Again, this is not just an economic imperative, it is a moral obligation of our generation that we must meet. And now, friends, I have a message, another message. A message to those foreign-funded special interests who have been leading a campaign of economic sabotage against this great province. to the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, to the Tides Foundation, to Lead Now, to the David Suzuki Foundation, and to all of the others. Your days of pushing around Albertans with impunity just ended. Are patient and we're fair-minded, but we've had enough of your campaign of defamation and double standards. So today, with this election, we begin to stand up for ourselves, for our jobs, and for our future. Today, we Albertans begin to fight back. From this day forward, whenever you lie about how we produce energy, we will tell the truth assertively, and we will use every means at our disposal to hold you to account. When multinational companies like HSBC boycott Alberta, we'll boycott them. We will launch a public inquiry into the foreign source of funds behind the campaign to landlock Alberta's energy. And we will ban foreign money from our politics and use every legal tool at our disposal to defend the working women and men of Alberta. And now, friends, please bear with me for a minute, because I have a very important message for us to deliver to our friends in Quebec. Le Quebec, who we admire and with whom we want to work. Le Quebec, and I'm going to speak in French for a moment. Please bear with me. I'll repeat this in English. Le Québec et l'Alberta ont toujours été des alliés naturels. Les Albertains admirent les Québécois. Nous partageons des valeurs communes et croyons en un fédéralisme respectueux des champs de compétences provinciales. Quebec and Alberta have always been natural allies. Albertans admire Quebecers, and we share common values and believe in a respectful federalism that respects provincial jurisdiction. Des milliers, oui, c'est vrai, right? Des milliers de Québécois ont choisi leur domicile en Alberta. Thousands of Quebecers have chosen to make Alberta their new home. J'ai énormément de respect pour votre Premier ministre François Legault. J'admire le fait que son gouvernement mette l'accent sur la croissance économique et se soit engagé à éliminer la dépendance du Québec envers les précations. I have great respect for Quebec's Premier François Legault. I admire that his government is focused on economic growth and is committed to ending Quebec's dependence on equalization. Les Albertains, it's important that we communicate this message of partnership, friends. Les Albertains sont généreux. En période de prospérité, nous n'avons jamais hésité à partager notre richesse avec les autres provinces. Mais les temps ont beaucoup changé. L'Alberta fait maintenant face à des sérieuses difficultés économiques. Nous vivons une crise de matière d'emploi marquée par un taux de chômage élevé. Albertans are generous. In good times, we never hesitate to share our wealth with other provinces. But times have changed with an economic crisis in this province. Pourquoi ces difficultés? Eh bien, l'une des raisons est que nous ne pouvons pas exporter notre pétrole dans les marchés internationaux. Nous avons besoin des pipelines pour la prospérité de tous les Canadiens, y compris les Québécois. We need pipelines for the prosperity of all Canadians, including Quebecers. La décision à prendre n'est pas difficile. Faut-il privilégier le pétrole albertain qui est produit dans le respect des normes environnementales et sociales les plus rigoureuses ou celui des États-Unis et de l'OPEC? Poser la question, c'est y répondre. The question is simple. Do Quebecers want to fuel their economy with ethically produced Canadian energy or with that oil imported from the United States and the OPEC dictatorships. To ask the question is to answer it. And so the decision we need to make is this. Let me say this to all Quebecers and to Premier Legault. At a time when Alberta is hurting, we must work together. Si le Québec et les autres provinces veulent accepter les transferts fiscaux massifs provenant de l'Alberta, alors, s'il vous plaît, aidez-nous à développer nos ressources naturelles et notre économie. If Quebecers and other provinces want to benefit from massive transfers developed by the hard work and resources of Albertans, then they must be partners with us in developing those resources and getting them to international markets. Friends, today Albertans have chosen hope over fear and unity over division. They have chosen free enterprise values over the politics of resentment. They have rejected the politics of personal destruction and endorsed the most detailed plan ever offered to Alberta voters, 117 pages long with 375 specific commitments. Commitments to get Alberta working. Friends, tonight, the silent majority has spoken. The silent majority has spoken, not the loud and angry voices on social media, but average Albertans who simply spoke today. Those folks who simply want their common sense values reflected in their government, who want high-quality health, education, and public services, but who understand that we need a vibrant private sector economy in order to pay for those things. Albertans who get that governments cannot redistribute wealth unless someone is creating that wealth through their hard work in the first place. Albertans who know that we cannot tax and borrow our way to prosperity. Albertans who understand that the carbon tax is all economic pain and no environmental gain, and who want to scrap the carbon tax cash grab. Albertans who know that debt is a trap that takes money away from vital public services and sends it to bankers and bondholders. Albertans who believe in our great tradition of school choice because they understand that parents know better than politicians what's best for their kids. Friends, let me thank all of those who have entrusted us with your confidence today. We will strive to honor your confidence every single day. To be sure, our government will make mistakes. We won't be perfect. But I can guarantee you that we'll work every single day to deliver on our commitments to you, to create jobs, to fight for a fair deal in Canada, to make Alberta strong and free. Friends, Premier Notley and I spoke earlier this evening. I look forward to working with her on an orderly transition. And let me thank our Premier for her tremendous public service. As I've said many times, go ahead, please. Please do. As I've said many times before, we are fortunate to have a Premier of such ability, intelligence, and passion for this province. Our disagreements should never diminish our respect for one another as Albertans who are devoted to making life better for our fellow citizens. So, on behalf of all Albertans, thank you, Premier, for your hard work over these 4 past challenging years. Thank you to your team. While we have policy differences, there can be no doubt that you've always sought to make the right decisions in the service of Albertans according to the best of your judgment. Let me also thank David Kahn, Stephen Mandel, and their teams as well. Albertans, I truly believe Albertans are well served to have political leadership of this caliber. Thank you as well to candidates from all parties who had the courage to put their names on the ballot. You helped to make democracy happen today. Fellow Albertans, it's my hope that we can work together to stop the coarsening of our public discourse, to raise the bar of civility and respect. And while we will always have disagreements, as we should in a democracy, let us seek always to express those disagreements without being disagreeable. Thank you to our remarkable United Conservative team of candidates, a new generation that is ready to lead. To those who have been elected, I cannot wait to get to work with you. And to those who didn't succeed tonight, you contributed to our broader success, for which I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much to our thousands of volunteers who have worked so hard to bring us to this moment of hope and change. Thank you to the voters of Calgary-Lougheed for entrusting me with your confidence once again. And a special thank you to my campaign manager, Tasha Schindel, and our amazing local volunteers for running a brilliant campaign, largely in my absence. Friends, nearly 3 years ago, we launched an audacious campaign to reunite free enterprise Albertans into one big tent coalition. Many said it couldn't be done, but we overcame enormous obstacles along the way. To all of those who opened their homes and their hearts to me as I visited every corner of the province over the past 3 years, let me say thank you. I've been moved again and again by the endless generosity of Albertans in building this grassroots movement into the biggest provincial political party in Canada and the next government of Alberta. Folks, let me tell you about one such individual. August the 6th, 2016, I pulled up that blue pickup in front of the Esso station in Hardisty. Doesn't get much more Alberta than Hardisty, by the way. And I was filling up my gas tank. Young fella pulls up behind mine, jumps out, rushes up, starts filling, says to me, "Excuse me, are you that Kenney guy?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "How long before you get rid of this government?" I said, "Probably about 3 years." He said to me, "Sir, that's not fast enough. You got to go faster." I said, "Look, fella, I'm going as fast as I can, but they will choose when the election is, not us." And he stopped me right there. He said, "Sir," he got very emotional. He said, "Sir, please understand, my dad lost his job out here 18 months ago. He's getting depressed now. I've never seen him like this before, and I'm worried about him. And I'm just 17, and I'm the only paycheck for mom and dad and all 4 of my brothers and sisters." And that young 17-year-old started to tear up in front of me. I realized at any normal time in our Alberta lives, that 17-year-old would be working hard and playing hard, probably not paying a lot of attention to politics. But suddenly, the decisions that we made today meant everything for him and his family. So I'm sorry to that young man, wherever he is, I have thought about you every day for the past 3 years. And hundreds of other Albertans who have shared with me their stories of adversity. But to all of them, we say, we finally got it done. Folks, I'll just close by saying this. That young man and countless other Albertans are what this is all about. We haven't worked this hard or for this long for politics or for power, but for people. The people who have lost so much. The people at the margins. Tonight, and the next 4 years is for them. It's about doing everything within our power to make it possible for people like that to achieve their God-given potential in this great land of prosperity and opportunity called Alberta. It's about the single moms struggling to make ends meet. It's about the seniors on fixed incomes who are anxious about paying the bills. It's about the farmers and small business owners who have sleepless nights about growing debt. It's about the First Nations people who too often feel like they can't get a fair shot at opportunity. It's about the new Canadians who are stuck in survival jobs because they can't get their degrees or work experience recognized. It's about the young Albertans who are wondering if they have to leave our province to find work. It's about the oil field families who've lost their homes. It's about the lady in Medicine Hat last week who came up to me in tears to say, my husband's been working in Ontario for 2 years. Please get our economy back so he can come home. It's about those people that we work so hard. And so, friends, I stand here tonight with you, with the members of our new government, to say that we will fight for those Albertans and so many more like them. And finally, let me speak to those Albertans who did not vote for the United Conservatives today. I respect and honour your choice. We will strive to be a government for all Albertans, not just those who voted for us. Albertans have given us a mandate to implement the positive ideas in our platform, to bring bold change that gets Alberta back to work. In implementing those policies, we will reach out to those who disagree in a spirit of dialogue, to find common ground wherever possible, to listen, and when we're wrong, to change course. Friends, let me close as I began our entire United Alberta movement 3 years ago by saying that Alberta isn't just a place on a map. It's not just a random collection of people. Alberta is an idea. It's an idea of a free society that believes in the creative power of human potential, of people unleashed to pursue their greatest strengths and passions, a belief that strong and resilient individuals, strong communities are better at preventing social problems than a big impersonal and bureaucratic state. We need to revive our belief in those entrepreneurial Alberta values that built this province into the envy of the world. And with your support in the 4 years to come, that is exactly what we will do, working day and night to renew the Alberta advantage, to renew this province as a place of hope and opportunity for generations to come, an Alberta that is strong and free. God bless you, and God bless Alberta. Thank you very much.
Well, there you have it. Jason Kenney, the Premier-elect, the Premier-designate, with a lengthy speech covering a lot of ground. I think, Sheila and Keean, that the loudest applause line was when he specifically named the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, the Tides Foundation, the David Suzuki Foundation. I'm not sure if he mentioned Lead Now and other foreign-funded groups and said, your days are done. What do you think?
Yeah. I'm very excited. It sounds like he's been reading your book, Ethical Oil, and paying attention to one of my favorite Republican governors, Kristi Noem, who brought in similar legislation in her state of South Dakota to basically gang bust these out-of-state, foreign-funded radicals who are blocking energy projects that look to go through the southern portion of her state. Yeah, you know, for a guy who doesn't do a lot of talking to us, he sure likes to take our talking points, doesn't he?
He really does.
Yeah.
Keean, what did you think of his speech?
I found it interesting. Well, first off, I guess congratulations are in order to designate Jason Kenney. I'm excited to see what he does in his next 4 years. I think it's going to be a lot of repealing and then action to follow. I'm going to give Jason Kenney 100 days to see some substantial change in the direction of Alberta. If I don't see that, I'm going to be a very upset Albertan Conservative. Going through his speech, it was interesting to see, and I think I heard it correctly, he thanked every leadership candidate except for Derek Hildebrand, who it looks like did lose his riding. I don't even think he came in second place, which...
He came in fourth, I think.
It looks like. Jason, it sounds like there's still some bad blood there. Not thanking Derek Hildebrand was very weird. I think it was a bit of a cringy thing to do, but to each his own. It was a very long speech, but I guess it was a long 4 years of NDP government to cover. He talked about repealing the carbon tax, which is going to be Bill 1. I'm excited to see what Bills 2 through 10 look like. I'm hoping that he moves forward on voluntary student unionism. I'm hoping that he moves forward on some municipal reform. What are you looking forward to the most, besides the carbon tax repeal?
The carbon tax, I'm also very much looking forward to the reaffirming of parents' rights. I think parents' rights have really been under attack in this province. Parents have been basically excluded from their children's education. I know when I'm out on the road, I hear from homeschoolers who have just absolutely been under attack by Rachel Notley and her NDP government. She nuked the Wisdom homeschooling program basically overnight. The parents found out in a robocall. And I've heard from a lot of people of faith who have just been absolutely disgusted by how the Rachel Notley government has really campaigned against them and the things they say they believe privately in their homes and in their church pews as some sort of reason to exclude them from public service. It's really atrocious, and I'm looking forward to the end of all of that.
I hope that the attack on charter schools ends today as well. Weber Academy, the best performing school in all of Alberta, has been under attack from the Rachel Notley government and the operatives at Progress Alberta and Press Progress. They hate schools where parents choose that are not controlled by the provincial government. That's what the NDP hate. They want every student to be in government factory schools. But Jason Kenney has a healthy support for school choice, so I'm looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, very interesting. You know, on one of my shows in the last few days, I pointed out that when Donald Trump finally took office, just like Kenney is not the actual premier, he's the premier designate or the premier elect, there is a transition period. Obviously, we know about that in the United States as well. And so when Donald Trump took office on his inauguration day, he had a very carefully planned series of dramatic executive orders that were all lined up ready to go. You may recall he immediately scrapped the TPP trade deal. He immediately approved the Keystone XL and Dakota Access Pipeline. There was a series of things he insisted on doing in that first week. Not that it mattered if it was a week later, but for the symbolism, to let people know he was serious. And I think Jason Kenney needs to do that too. Earlier in the show tonight, talked about the ancient Roman emperor's custom of damnatio memoriae, just absolutely nullifying any memory of the previous emperor, rescinding every law, even destroying every statue, scraping off the face of coins even. That's the kind of undoing that needs to be done. And the problem is, it's not just the laws, it's the appointees. There are 50,000 bureaucrats more now than there were 4 years ago. Many of them are just rank and file, people actually doing something, but a large number of them are hyper-partisan zealots, like Zipporah Berman was, for example. I mean, to give you a real example, Ed Whittingham from the foreign-funded Pembina Institute anti-oil lobby group was installed by Rachel Notley on the Alberta Energy Regulator. He is still there today. The hyper-partisan, bizarre, lawless, discredited, toxic election commissioner, hand-picked by Rachel Notley, he's still there today. So just like when Donald Trump took office, he had all these splashy announcements, but there were all these Obama holdovers that were underminers, colluding, leaking. I think Jason Kenney is about to get a wake-up call that the election is not over, and it was a fine speech tonight, and I actually didn't mind the Francais, because he was sending a message to Quebec that the Rachel Notley rollover for equalization payments, the being steamroller days, that's done. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good positive tone. But the battle just got nastier in a way. It's not going to be in the public. It's going to be leaking, undermining, and if Jason Kenney doesn't take a blowtorch to it, and when in doubt, throw him out, he will find himself to a bumpy start. He's got to put them on the back foot. Let me put it this way. If he doesn't do it to them, they'll do it to him. That first week, you said 100 days, Keean. I think you're right. It's got something dramatic has to happen on the first day to show it's not just changing orange for blue. It's got to be a dramatic statement. That carbon tax is the obvious one. That must be repealed on the first day. In fact, I think Kenney himself probably used that phraseology. We need to see that or no one will take him seriously. Last analogy before I throw it back to you guys there in Calgary. It's like when Ronald Reagan had his showdown with the air traffic controllers. You may recall that they threatened to go on an illegal strike. And Reagan said, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. They did it, and he fired every single one of them. And he replaced them with the military air traffic controllers, and no one thought he could or would, and he did. And it wasn't just that he broke that illegal strike. After the Cold War ended, when we learned what was going on in the minds of the Kremlin, when Ronald Reagan stared down the air traffic controllers by sacking every damn one of them, that was an important foreign policy signal that the Kremlin said, oh, we're not dealing with a Jimmy Carter anymore. Oh, maybe when Reagan says something, we better bloody well know he means it. So that first dramatic act cleared the way for 8 years of successful governance by Reagan. Kenney needs a Reagan air traffic controllers moment, and it's got to be brutal, and it's got to be big, and everyone's going to say, oh, I guess he means it. I guess Rachel Notley ain't running things anymore. Okay.
Yeah, I think some spring cleaning is in order here in Alberta. I was sad. I had my bingo sheet saying that listening for Jason Kenney to say it's springtime in Alberta. I don't think he ended up saying it, but you're absolutely right. We need something dramatic. We need to. I'm very, very keen to see the legislation that he and his transition team are drafting up. I have reports from campaign staff that a transition meeting is happening as early as tomorrow morning. Jason Kenney is going to be leaving Calgary tonight. Jason Kenney is going to be leaving Calgary tomorrow morning. He's going to be partying downtown Calgary tonight, but tomorrow morning he's leaving to Edmonton, and the transition team is already underway. So I'm expecting some of those order and cancels to be occurring the exact same day as cabinet is sworn in. I'm also very interested to see who is going to be in that cabinet. Before my internet crapped out here, keep in mind I've already paid $50 for internet today here at the Stampede grounds so that I can watch poll results. And the last poll results I saw Casey Madhu being the only Edmonton candidate, conservative candidate, winning. Sheila,
he's up by 800 votes,
which is a significant margin. I don't think will be overturned by advanced polls. Anything under 5%, I'd say we're in the margins of not being able to determine it tonight. But Casey Madhu, I can't see him not being in cabinet. Devin Dreeshen, I think he's an obvious choice for agriculture minister.
Sonia Savage for energy.
That's a good guess as well. She's a very articulate woman. She's one of those women that got into politics and really hit her stride immediately. I've listened to one or two of her speeches, and what an articulate woman she is.
But not just that, she actually worked at a pipeline company and helped spearhead the battle against the overweening regulations and the foreign-funded antis. So she knows that probably better than anyone else. Keean, you mentioned you couldn't get connection to the internets. I have in front of me two ridings that I know are of interest to you. You mentioned Edmonton Southwest. Casey Madhu is at 45.9%. He's the UCP candidate who was racially attacked by the bigoted New Democrat CBC candidate, John Archer, in a disgraceful racist attack that got very little coverage in the media. I'm pleased to say that karma is wreaking havoc on the racist John Archer, who is at 40.4%, but that is only a 4.5% difference. It's still within the margin of lawyer. And in other news, you're commie hunting, Keean, and of course I say that descriptively, not as an insult, but as an observation. In Calgary Varsity, the Communist candidate, Anne McGrath, who's running for the NDP in a wolf in wolf's clothes, as I said earlier, she has 43%, and Jason Copping, the UCP challenger, or I guess they're both challengers, has 45.7%. So he leads her by about 420 votes. Again, a 2.7% margin. Again, within the margin of lawyers. So neither of those are safe victories.
No, but it's a lot closer than I think it would have been without Keean's beautiful billboard truck. You were changing hearts and minds on the ground.
We over 6,000 people saw that billboard truck. I guarantee it. So if it changed even half of those people's minds, that's good news. That's a win in my books.
I want to give a shout out to some Super Chat members, just for folks who don't know or who joined us lately. Super Chat is a function of YouTube where you can chip in some dough, get your comments highlighted, and we are lucky enough to get 70% of that revenue, which we use to pay our bills. There's some very generous donors. Eagle's Nest kicked in $100, who said extremely professional coverage and great fun at the same time. What a team. Thanks, Rebel Media. Well, that's pretty friendly, and I'm glad you say we've achieved that balance. Let me scroll up because we didn't take any Super Chats during Jason Kenney's lengthy speech, and I regret that I don't have any more in front of me. Our producer and decision desk says in my ear he just emailed me one. Patrick chipped in $70 and said, build those pipelines. You're sure right on that. Hey, Justin, can you call up, do you have the Rockefeller Brothers PowerPoint document? If you get that ready, I want to show the front page and the logos page. Sheila, it's coming up on 1 a.m. in Toronto. It's coming up on 11 p.m. in Calgary. Can you just give me a report? What is the spirit like there? You guys are smiling. I saw Monty Solberg behind you a moment, probably about 10 minutes ago. Is Sarah Reiger, the fake news journalist from the state broadcaster, is she engaging in self-harm? Do we need to send anyone over to talk her down?
I think we're going to send the suicide hotline to every mainstream media journalist at least to press progress.
They are a surly bunch down the aisle here. They are just frantically pounding on their keyboard keys like their computers didn't do anything to them. They don't need to be so vigorous with them. They're not saying much. I don't see any tears, but I don't see any smiles.
Are they angry drunks, or are they more like the happy, emotionally demonstrative drunks?
No, they're neither.
Vacant.
The Duff beer bottle, Surly the beer. That's what they're like. They're very they're not happy, but they're not saying they're not happy. I think they're doing their best to keep it together, and for that I'm glad, because I don't think they would be pretty criers at all. They're not
pick
good.
Up a camera here and go talk to Sarah, I think, tonight. She doesn't know it yet. If she's watching the Rebel live stream, she does.
Well, this is the last UCP event we ever get into. But it'll be worth it. That'll be worth getting kicked out of her.
She needs to be held to account. She's a public servant. She works for the CBC, and she deserves she needs to answer some questions. She was the one who wrote the original article on Anne McGrath that neglected to mention her red record. She highlighted every candidacy she's ever had, but for some reason refused to mention the time she ran in 1984 for the Communist Party of Canada at the height of the Cold War. So I'm going to ask her if she did that on purpose or if she was just incompetent and couldn't figure it out herself. I'm going to ask her why she lied about the Rebel, why she pretended like we broke some law when we didn't. I don't think she's going to have answers, just like Anne McGrath, but I'm excited to see her
She didn't
response.
have answers when Ezra asked her. I never sent you that whole tape.
All right, just make sure to use the proper pronouns there, okay? We don't need a human rights complaint. I think it's sure. I want to do one more thing before we go. It's 11 p.m. on the nose, and I don't want to keep you guys up too much later because I know you've had a huge day and you've worked so hard this whole campaign. You must feel exhilarated. Sheila, your book, Stop Notley, your 5,000 lawn signs. Well, in fact, Notley was stopped, and some of the credit goes to you and Keean. I want to do one more. We're having some banter. We're joking around. But we still have 2,400 viewers on the line, and I want to show them three things. I want to show them a couple of pages from the Rockefeller Brothers Fund campaign plan that Jason Kenney referred to, that I have been talking about for years, probably written 10 columns about and done 100 shows on. And I want to show those who would rely on the fake news media, I want to show them what it is. And then I want to close, and then we'll go back to Sheila and Keean for a closing thought. And then I want to end with the new news, namely the shocking new news from the elections office, that they literally were attacking us today with more lawsuits. So I think we have about 10 more minutes, and I would encourage our viewers who aren't pooped yet to stick around. So Sheila and Keean, I want to show our viewers this Rockefeller Brothers Fund, because people are saying, Rockefeller, what's that? Well, as you can see on the screen, this is a PowerPoint presentation called The Tar Sands Campaign, July 2008, so it's more than 10 years old now, and I have verified that this document is legitimate. In fact, the Pembina Institute itself confirmed that it is. In fact, Justin, are you able to go page by page on this thing, or do you just have page one and the logo page? Okay, I can put this online for people. I want to show you the key page. I was going to show the map page also, and if you can dig that up, Justin, that's great. But this is I think it's a 36 or a 48 page campaign plan. It's run out of New York by the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. You can see that, 2 places on the cover. But look at who their front groups are. Go to the logo page there. This is inside the PowerPoint. A network of leading U.S. and Canadian NGOs, coordinated campaign structure, Rockefeller Brothers Fund and Hewlett Foundation's $7 million a year campaign. That's how it started 11 years ago. Vivian Krause has documented 900 million from this and other campaigns, but it started at 7 million a year. Now look at some of those names there. In the top right, you have the World Wildlife Fund. Gerald Butts was the president of the World Wildlife Fund. Look at the bottom left, Greenpeace. That's where Tzipora Berman was. Right up from that is Environmental Defense. Sierra Club, their vice president works in Justin Trudeau's PMO. Look at the, on the left-hand side, at 1/3 of the way down, Forest Ethics. That is now called Stand Earth. That is Trish Mahone, or Karen Mahone, and Tzipora Berman now works there. And you can see right there on the bottom right, almost right at the bottom, it says Pembina. It's sort of small. It's next to Sierra Club. That is an anti-oil sands extremist group. All these groups are funded by the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. Not only does Ed Whittingham from the Pembina Institute now sit on the Alberta Energy Regulator, but the former president of Pembina Institute, Marlo Reynolds, is Catherine McKenna's chief of staff in Ottawa. My point is, this is a secret document that was leaked, I don't know by whom. It's confirmed as authentic. And this is the list of the Quislings. This is the list of the Canadians who allowed themselves to be rented by foreign paymasters to lobby and scheme against Canadian oil industry, to Canadianize the Rockefeller Brothers campaign. If a bunch of Yankees came up here, Yankee billionaires, and said, I do say, well, they wouldn't have that accent. If they said, you should shut down your oil patch, we'd laugh and say, yeah, you're Rockefellers. You got your money from oil. You're Americans. Please piss off. But if they invested in a front group, or in this case, 10 front groups, well, then they could get away with bloody murder. Thanks for showing these. Keean and Sheila, do you want to weigh in on that? There's plenty more very interesting pages in that document, including detailed maps showing the pipelines they wanted to cut off and demarket. But what do you make of the fact that Kenney is naming Voldemort, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, Tides, and the Suzuki Foundation?
He has his eye on it. What's going to be great is when they get access to all the accounts and all the computers that have the records of the NDP government. I'm going to be keenly watching to see if they've been colluding with these bastards. I think that, I imagine that they have, and I'm looking forward to seeing some evidence of it. We know that Rachel Notley has been to every anti-oil sands protest that existed pre-2015. So, you know, it's cheetahs don't change their spots, and throughout her entire mandate, she has been doing everything that she can to make it look like she's been supporting the industry, while stabbing it in the back while she shakes its hand. So I'm excited that Kenney has his eye on it. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does going forward.
Well, and you know, this week Rachel Notley has said that you know, there was really just calling things that Vivian Krause has spent the last basically 10 years digging up about the connections from these foreign-funded eco-radical foundations to blocking Canadian oil and gas. She's basically insinuated that a lot of it is conspiracy theory and that it's, you know, not grounded in reality, even though Vivian Krause, the researcher involved, has found all the documents in American tax records. It's there in black and white. But, you know, of course, Rachel Notley knows that. She's hired so many of these people who have spent their lifetime being foreign funded to block Canadian oil and gas into her government. She had to have known where they came from, and I would argue she hired them specifically because of where they came from. Of course. Yeah. And now it's over. It's over. Finally, it's over. But I know a lot of these guys are going, like Ed Whittingham, he's going to get a massive severance from when he's finally fired at the AER. Rachel Notley appointed him, you know, at the 11th hour, and now Jason Kenney has said he's going to fire Ed Whittingham. What's that going to cost us? Another $200,000 just to weed out one of Rachel Notley's foreign-funded appointees? I mean, it's just a slap in the face on the way out the door.
Yeah, but it's got to be done. That's the damnatio memoriae I was talking about. Every single appointee must be fired. There was another idea I had, and I talked about this on my show the other day, but I'm sure I have a different audience tonight. I should say that one of the problems over the last 4 years were the traitors, the quislings, the sellouts in the oil industry. In particular, the 4 senior oil sands CEOs that stood with Rachel Notley and gave their approval for her carbon tax and her production cap. Now, the reason they did that is because they all cut private deals with Rachel Notley so that they would get massive exemptions. So they gave Notley what she wanted. Oh, look, the biggest 4 oil sands companies, Suncor, Canadian Natural, I think Cenovus was one of them, and Shell, if I recall. So how are you going to argue against that? They gave Notley the cover they wanted. Those 4 companies were exempt from the carbon tax and hurt their competitors. Those kind of disgraceful CEOs need to be blacklisted in Kenney's office and his staff and his ministries. What I mean by that, I'm not talking about vengeance. I'm not talking about hurting them. I'm just saying, if those slimy, oleaginous CEOs who thought they could buy a moment's comfort for themselves by throwing 4.5 million Albertans under the bus, if they want to come to meet with Jason Kenney or Kenney's oil minister, they should be told, yeah, no, we're fine. You can meet with Rachel Notley again. He has to have a hygiene. He has to be discriminating. And if there's a self-hating oil man, okay, fine, you're not going to be punished, but neither will you be helped. Because I think the sickness started in the oil industry. They got tobacco executive syndrome. They started to hate themselves, and so they were susceptible to the green BS. And I think Kenney has to start by instilling self-respect in the oil patch. And if you are an oil company and you want to donate $100,000 to Pembina like Shell does, fine. Don't expect to get an audience with the Premier or the Energy Minister. That's my own view.
Yep, I agree.
Well, it's looking like things are clearing out here. Ezra, the media is actually wrapping up, surprisingly. I think a lot of them are probably just tired and exhausted. They've been working away, trying
They've had a rough day
throughout this whole campaign to get the NDP reelected, and they utterly failed. I can't imagine how bad they feel right now.
They worked so hard for this day just for it to not go their way.
Well, I know you guys worked so hard too, and it's 11:10 out there. I would like to, I want to show one more video before we go, but I'm going to say goodbye and good night to you, Sheila and Keean. You've worked so hard, not just today, but for last month and indeed years beforehand, in your case, Sheila. So thank you for giving us great on-the-spot coverage as well as your coverage. There was a moment there where we had close to 4,500 people watching at the same time. In fact, for quite a while, we had more live stream viewers than the CBC state broadcaster, and with all their fancy staff here in our Rebel command post, it's just me and our election desk producer, filmographer, everythinger guy, Justin, who I'd like to give a special thank you to for staying up so late, and Martin, who made our fancy schmancy graphics, and I couldn't even wait till the polls closed before using those. But a special thank you to Martin for that. So Sheila and Keean, thanks to you guys. I'm going to say goodnight to you, but hey, viewers, stick around because I want to show you while Sheila and Keean, let them say goodbye, JT, just for a sec, and then I'm going to show them one important video that we rolled out today. Last words from you, Sheila.
Well, you know what, I can't, I'm overwhelmed by this entire day. We've all worked very hard for this day. I especially want to thank Keean. This last month would not have been possible without Keean. Keean worked just as hard as I did, crisscrossing the province to help me promote my book and hand out all those stopnotley.com launch sites. So I want to just thank you because, I mean, I know how hard I worked. It was constant, and you were working just as hard, and it's my book. It's not even yours.
Well, it's a great book, and it's rewarding work here at the Rebel. The grassroots support that we have is outstanding. I'm excited to see what's next. And before we sign off, I gotta say hey to my mom and dad. They've been texting me this whole time. They told me to give them a shout out. So they didn't do a super chat, but they sent me a text, so I guess that counts. But outside of that, it looks like things are clearing up here. Thanks for hosting tonight, Ezra. We appreciate it. And thank you for your help throughout this whole campaign. You've been really helpful putting us on task throughout this whole campaign, bringing up stories that are of interest to Albertans. You're really in tune with that, so we appreciate it.
Oh, one last thing, a special thank you to Rebel alumni, Holly Nicholas. Rebel alumnus, I think is the right way to say that. Holly Nicholas, she was helping us because it's very difficult for us to manage our camera, our lighting, the computer, the audio, and run around and get additional camera footage. So she was kind enough to volunteer her time, and she's always a great help for us when we're in Calgary. So thank you, Holly, when you watch this later.
Yeah, Holly's just the best, and thank you. All right, you guys, well, have a great night and a good sleep. You both deserve it. So we'll sign off from Calgary now, but I would like the viewers, and we still have more than 2,000 folks watching, to stick around for two things. First, I want to say a quick thank you to our new Super Chats. Thank you to Dat1, who kicked in $50, and Havana Sam, $70 from Varsity. It's fun to see you here. I think those are the last two Super Chats. But now I want to tell you something, and it obviously was not as important as the news of the day, which was the election itself. But I have to tell you that all those billboards we showed you earlier were the subject of prosecutions by Rachel Notley's hand-picked election commissioner, who, it's a new office. There's Elections Alberta that runs the election, but Notley handpicked an election commissioner, new position, to go after only conservative entities. That's all he's gone after. I mean, I guess theoretically he could go after a leftist, he just didn't. And he went after us for those billboards we were doing, even though we're a media company, and we're obviously exempt because it's our journalistic commentary. And he had a trial of us and convicted us before even telling us the trial was on. It was a secret trial. It was so bizarre, and we fought back, and we hired a lawyer, and we appealed, and we've got a court date. So I thought that was sort of done. Like that happened in January, February kind of thing. And so we have a court date, and we're going to get out of this kangaroo court that Rachel Notley's running and get into a real court. So I'm pretty optimistic. Our lawyers think we're going to win the whole thing, hands down. Obviously, it's a constitutional battle. We're challenging the legality of the law. So I thought we were done, and we were just enjoying the campaign. But literally, in the past few days, we have received a flurry of new attacks, new legal attacks by Rachel Notley, including today. You'd think that on election day, Rachel Notley might have other things to do, but no, it was her last day to shoot little missiles at us because, like I say, she'll be gone, and the cabinet will be gone, and their top political staff will be gone, but all their little poison pills that they've hidden like Easter eggs in the government will remain, including the election commissioners. So with your permission, let me close with a video that we released just today. And you can watch this whole video at standwiththerebel.com. But please permit me, what is it, about 7 minutes or so, Justin? It's 10 minutes. I'm going to play a 10-minute video for you in its entirety, and then I'll come back and say a proper goodbye. So please indulge me and watch this video, because I think it's exactly the kind of problem we're going to see a lot of. Rachel Notley is gone as premier, or as good as gone. But her appointees remain. And just like Obama undermined Trump with his appointees that stuck around, I believe Notley's appointees will undermine Kenney, like they're undermining us. Here, watch my video that I just released today. I can't believe it. It's election day in Alberta. You'd think Rachel Notley would have better things to do, but she's still trying to get her vengeance on the rebel. Voters are going to throw Notley and her NDP destroyers out of office today, but Notley's hand-picked election staff have just filed a flurry of new complaints against us at the Rebel and against me personally. I'm holding them in my hands right now. It's so bizarre. None of it makes sense. It's also obviously illegal, but they're doing it anyways. And here's the thing. Unlike Notley, they're permanent bureaucrats. So until Jason Kenney actually fires them, they will still be working away within the government of Alberta even after today's election. It's so bizarre. Let me give you just one quick example. I mean, they've been peppering us with crazy letters, but I'm going to show you just one, okay? Remember back in January I showed you this letter from Notley's hand-picked elections commissioner, a highly partisan activist named Lauren Gibson. He put us at the Rebel on trial without even letting us know. He convicted us in secret and told us about it afterwards in this letter. But look at that first sentence there back in January. I write in relation to an investigation undertaken by my office regarding a complaint from Elections Alberta. So Elections Alberta are the folks who run the elections, and this guy, the elections commissioner, is the guy who just convicted us in a secret trial. And they were talking about this billboard that we had put up last year. Well, as you might remember, we asked for a copy of the complaint that we were convicted for, and we still haven't received it. So that was back in January, right? Well, look what I got in the mail. Now, it's dated March 18th, but obviously that was backdated since I didn't receive it till just a few days ago, about that billboard that we had up last year, that the elections commissioner said this complaint was the basis for their secret trial in January. But I just got this. I just got it now. So how can you file a complaint after a trial is over? When the trial was supposed to be based on this. And why did the elections commissioner, I showed you, he said he had this complaint back then. He was lying. What's going on over there? You don't convict someone and then file the complaint about them. But what happened right before the letter was sent? Oh, nothing. Just Sheila Gunn Reid's new book called Stop Notley was released on Amazon and became an instant national bestseller. Funny how the timing works. Right after that is when this letter was sent. And remember when Keean Bexte, our reporter in Calgary, accosted a communist candidate for Notley's NDP named Anne McGrath? She called the actual police, 911 call. Remember this?
Has any other media organization asked?
Call the police.
Okay, we're in public, so I'm allowed to ask you these questions.
You're not.
Now, the police came and told Keean he was doing absolutely nothing wrong, of course.
Based on even the information that she's told us, there's nothing criminal.
But right on film, the point is the NDP were not shy about using actual police to crack down on journalistic criticism from the Rebel. Well, obviously we kept going. It's what we do. We're a free country. We handed out 5,000 Stop Notley lawn signs to promote Sheila's best-selling book. People love the lawn signs, people love the book, but then we started getting reports from people around the province that the RCMP, that the Mounties were picking up signs and collecting them. Is that what the RCMP do? Now, maybe a city bylaw officer, if it's somewhere it shouldn't be, I could understand, maybe. Sure seems like there are a lot of other lawn signs all over public property, but the RCMP, actual police, well, if they're political, they do. If they get calls from high-ranking NDP candidates like Anne McGrath did, right on tape they do. And wouldn't you know it, I actually received this email more than a couple weeks ago from a police officer in Grand Prairie threatening me with fines of up to $10,000 if he sees our signs on public property. By the way, we haven't put up any signs on public property. We don't put up our own signs. We give our signs to Alberta voters. They do with them what they want. But you see, the NDP is in a full court press against the Rebel. You see that? Weird complaints, secret trials, illegally backdating letters by months, forgetting to send letters, lying about things, calling 911, having actual Mounties put aside real crimes to take down lawn signs, having other cops threaten us by email with $10,000 fines. Oh, I forgot, I didn't tell you. I just got another, this one, complaint for another billboard that we did months ago. The Fire Phillips billboard. That's long gone, but we got this at the same time. Let me show you the weirdest part of this. I told you we're challenging the constitutionality of these censorship laws in court. So Rachel Notley has ordered the Justice Department to defend the law against our challenge. Now, there are hundreds of lawyers who work at the Alberta Department of Justice. And who did she choose? She chose this guy, Don Padgett. He's a lawyer for Alberta Justice, but he's a perennial left-wing political candidate for public office. And he always loses, but they keep taking him back at the Justice Department. He runs, loses, they take him back. He runs, loses, they take him back. Now, a lawyer just takes instructions. He might not even believe what he's been instructed to do. His loyalty is to his client. In this case, Rachel Notley's the client, but we know Padgett believes it because he's a left-wing extremist. He's a crank. He actually gets only a few dozen votes every time, and then he goes back to work for the Alberta government. But on Twitter, he's obsessed with me and the Rebel. And he gets really weird and personal about it. Here's a tweet where some leftist agitator had just made a Holocaust joke. God, they're so obsessed with the Holocaust. And Padgett jumps in and somehow links the Rebel to that. Look, I'm not obsessed by the Holocaust. I mean, I talk about it once in a while. I mean, I know the Holocaust is a fact. I'm Jewish. I care about it. But why is he retweeting someone trivializing the Holocaust and then linking it to me and the Rebel? That's weird. And then look at this one. Ezra sells out. Lugenpants Reich-sizing. Reich-sizing, that's the third Reich. That's why are you using Nazi language about me? I'm a Jew. Reich-sizing? I'm not going to click on that link because it's a page that doxed me. You know what that means? It revealed my home address and details about my family that I keep private for safety reasons. Now, I had a lawyer contact that website and have them take down my family's information for their protection. But why is Rachel Notley's lawyer at Alberta Justice making Nazi jokes and Holocaust jokes and linking to a page that gives personal details about my family? My family aren't involved in any of this. Why is he doing that? Why is he promoting a website that doxes my family? I just don't get it. Other than one thing. Rachel Notley hates the Rebel very, very much. Years ago, she first sent a sheriff to stop Sheila Gunn Reid from even entering the legislature, and she's thrown everything she can at us but the kitchen sink. We beat her back every time, and tonight, she's going to be thrown out of office, finally. So now she just doesn't even care anymore. I mean, they're literally calling 911 on us. They're literally having policemen email us with threats of $10,000 fine. When was the last time a cop emailed you to say you might be fined 10 grand for having a lawn sign? A cop. They're sending weirdo lawyers after us who make strange Holocaust jokes again and again, specifically about me. What's that got to do with anything anyways? What's that got to do with the constitutionality of the censorship law? Why are you bringing in the Holocaust? And now they're coming with new election complaints that don't even make sense and that must be dated falsely. How could it be? Seriously, a complaint received in April, dated in March, about a secret trial that was concluded in January. I mean, it's one thing to be a bully. It's another thing to just be stupid. But look, stupid or not, We've spent about 20 grand fighting back against Notley, and it's only going to get worse now. That's 20 grand that we can't spend on more reporters, which is, I think, exactly why Notley is doing this. It's lawfare. Can you please help me out, at least until Jason Kenney can get into power and root out these Notley zombies in the bureaucracy who are going to keep fighting for her like the undead? Seriously. Can you go with standwiththerebel.com, standwiththerebel.com, and please chip in. I got to pay the lawyers to fight this crap. I really thought Notley and Elections Alberta would have something better to do literally on election day, but I was wrong. Attacking the rebel is their #1 priority. It's their hottest obsession. Please visit standwiththerebel.com to help even the odds and help me beat back Notley's undead zombies. Thanks. Look, these guys won't. Well, there you go. I couldn't believe it. I thought I was done with them in January, February. I'm not. I wonder how long it's going to go, because all the people who were antagonizing the rebel, who were set up to do it by Rachel Notley, they're still doing it. And they will continue to do it. Why wouldn't they? It'll be very interesting. You can help us out. Go to standwiththerebel.com. And I know we've had a ton of help tonight through the Super Chats. Well, folks, it is 11:27 p.m. in the Wild Rose province, whose motto is so properly strong and free. The Latin version, Fortis et Liber, words taken from the Canadian anthem. My friends, I've enjoyed tonight. I thank you, the many thousands who were watching throughout the evening. In fact, there's an amazing 1,600 still watching now. A very special thanks to all the Super Chat donors, very, very generous. And of course, my friends, Keean and Sheila, who did a great job tonight. I mentioned already Justin, our election desk, and Martin, who did the fancy graphics, and Holly, who was doing some work helping out Sheila and Keean in Calgary. That's the show for today. We'll be right back with more news tomorrow and every day thereafter. That, or if Rachel Notley's zombie undead bureaucrats kill us first, well, we'll probably just shout with megaphones then. Until next time, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, to you at home, good night, and keep fighting for freedom.